Liverpool, 1800 and something. Picture 78,000 people crammed into streets that were never meant to hold them. Now imagine those streets haven't been cleaned in weeks. The horses keep dropping their business everywhere. The chimneys never stop coughing up coal smoke. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, you're just trying to survive until tomorrow. Here's what it was actually like to live in one of the most powerful, most dangerous and most foul-smelling cities on Earth. Before we dive into this, if you're enjoying falling asleep to stories like this one, tap that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight and what time it is where you are. I love hearing from you late-night listeners. Now then, let's get you to sleep. But first, get comfortable. Go ahead and adjust that pillow. Fluff it up a little. Find that perfect spot where your head just sinks in. Pull your blanket up higher if you need to. Tuck it around your shoulders. Let your body settle deeper into the mattress. Feel how soft it is beneath you. How clean your sheets are. How warm and safe you feel right now in this moment. Take a slow breath in and let it out. Notice how the air in your room doesn't burn your lungs, doesn't taste like coal smoke and horse manure, doesn't make your eyes water. That's a luxury you probably never think about. Clean air, a soft bed, a room that's yours. Hold on to that feeling. Remember it. Because where we're going, none of those things exist. Your eyes open to darkness, not the comfortable darkness of a bedroom with blackout curtains. This is a thick, damp, underground kind of dark, the kind that presses against your face like a wet cloth. You're lying on something that might have been a mattress at some point, maybe years ago. Now it's just a lumpy sack filled with straw that smells like it's been wet and dried and wet again more times than anyone bothered to count. This is home. A cellar beneath a house on one of Liverpool's back courts, 8 feet below street level. The ceiling is so low that if you stand up straight, the top of your head brushes against the damp stones above. There's no window, no ventilation, just a narrow set of stairs leading up to a trap door that opens onto the courtyard. 45,000 people in this city live like this, in cellars, underground, like human moles burrowing beneath the grand Georgian buildings that the merchants built with their cotton money and their sugar money and their other money that nobody talks about anymore. You're not alone down here either. There's your sister curled up against the far wall. She's 14, works at the rope factory down by the docks, hasn't stopped coughing for 3 weeks now. There's an older man in the corner who you think might be named George. He pays 2p a night to sleep here. His breath rattles like there's something loose inside his chest. And there's a woman with a baby who arrived yesterday. You don't know her name. She doesn't talk much. 5 people, 1 room, underground. The smell is something you've learned to ignore. Sort of. The way you ignore the ache in your back from the dock work or the constant gnawing in your stomach. Human bodies packed together in a space with no air circulation. Chamber pots that get emptied into the courtyard above, where the contents sometimes seep back down through the stones during heavy rain. Mould growing on every surface. The sourness of unwashed clothes and unwashed skin. But here's the thing, you don't really notice it anymore. This is just what air smells like to you. It's the only air you've ever known. You know it's morning because you can hear the world waking up above you. Footsteps on cobblestones, the clatter of wooden cartwheels, someone yelling in Irish, someone else yelling in Welsh, a baby screaming somewhere nearby. The deep resonant bells of St. Nicholas Church tolling the hour. That's your alarm clock. The Sailors' Church, they call it. Its spire rising up over the waterfront like a finger pointing at heaven. Sailors coming home from months at sea would spot that spire and know they'd finally made it back to Liverpool. You count the bells. 5, 6, 6 in the morning. Time to move. Your muscles protest as you sit up. Every part of you aches from yesterday's work. Hauling cotton bales up from ship holds, carrying barrels of sugar across the quayside, loading and unloading until your arms felt like they might fall off. And for what? 4 shillings and 6pence. Enough to pay for this cellar, buy some bread, and put a few pennies aside for when the work dries up. Because the work always dries up eventually. That's the thing about being a dock worker in Liverpool. There's no guaranteed employment, no steady wage. Every morning you show up at the dock gates and hope that someone picks you out of the crowd. Hope that the ships have come in. Hope that today isn't the day you go home empty-handed while your sister coughs herself to sleep and the baby next door cries because there's no milk. You pull on your shirt. It's the same shirt you wore yesterday, the same shirt you'll wear tomorrow. You own exactly 2 shirts, and the other one is too torn up to be decent. This one has holes too, but they're smaller holes, more respectable holes. Your trousers are held up with a piece of rope because the button broke off months ago. Your boots have holes in the soles that you've stuffed with newspaper. The newspaper gets wet and falls apart every time it rains, which is constantly. This is Liverpool. It's always raining, or about to rain, or just finished raining. You climb the stairs, push open the trapdoor, and emerge into the courtyard. Okay. So, a court is basically a small enclosed yard surrounded on all sides by buildings. You can only get in or out through a single narrow passageway, about 3 feet wide, that leads to the main street. There's no paving, just bare earth that turns to mud whenever it rains, which again is always. There's a single pump in the corner that provides water for everyone who lives here, about 40 people, 1 pump, and next to the pump there's the privy, 1 privy, for 40 people. The privy is a pit in the ground covered with a wooden seat. When it fills up, which it does regularly, someone is supposed to come empty it. In theory. In practice, it often overflows. The contents spill out across the courtyard. People track it into their homes on their boots. Sometimes it seeps down into the cellars below. This is why doctors keep saying Liverpool is the unhealthiest town in England. The average age of death here is 17 for working people. 17. In the countryside, people live into their 30s. In London, they make it to the mid-20s on average. But Liverpool? If you're working class in Liverpool, you're lucky to see 20. You're 19. Already living on borrowed time by the statistics. The air in the courtyard is thick with coal smoke. Every house in Liverpool burns coal. Every factory, every ship in the harbour has its boilers going. The smoke rises up and gets trapped under the low clouds that always seem to hang over the city. It creates this permanent haze, a yellow-grey fog that coats everything in a layer of soot. By the end of the day, the inside of your nose will be black. Your snot will be black. Your spit will be black. That's just how it is. And then there's the horse manure. Liverpool is powered by horses. Thousands of them. Every cart, every carriage, every delivery wagon, all horses. And horses, as you're probably aware, produce a significant amount of waste. Something like 15 to 30 pounds per horse per day. Multiply that by the thousands of horses working the streets of Liverpool, and you're looking at mountains of manure piling up faster than anyone can shovel it away. The streets are literally covered in the stuff. In summer, it bakes dry and crumbles into a fine dust that gets into everything. In winter, it mixes with the rain and the mud to create a thick, glutinous paste that can suck the boots right off your feet. Right now, in the early morning chill, it's somewhere in between. Wet enough to squelch, dry enough to release that distinctive aroma. Horse, smoke, sewage, unwashed humans. This is the perfume of Liverpool in 1800 something. You make your way through the passage and out onto the street. The sun hasn't properly risen yet, but the city is already in motion, already chaotic, already loud. Carts rumble past, carrying goods toward the docks. Street sellers are setting up their pitches, calling out in half a dozen different accents. Women with baskets on their heads, children darting between the traffic, dogs sniffing through piles of garbage, a dead horse lying in the gutter that's been there for at least 2 days, waiting for someone to come saw it into pieces small enough to haul away. Nobody does anything about a dead horse until it starts to rot, and even then, they're not in any great hurry. You step around it and keep walking. The buildings rise up on either side of you, tall, narrow, soot-stained brick. These were probably nice houses once, 20 years ago, 30, before the city's population exploded, before they started cramming 10 families into buildings designed for one. Now the windows are cracked or boarded up. The doors hang off their hinges. Washing lines stretch across the narrow streets, dripping onto the heads of people walking below. Every few yards there's a gaping doorway leading to another court like the one you just left. Another cluster of families living in cellars, more chamber pots being emptied out of upper windows, more children playing in mud that isn't really mud. But here's the strange thing. Mixed in with all this poverty, all this squalor, you can see evidence of extraordinary wealth. There, at the end of the street, a Georgian townhouse with clean windows and a freshly painted door, a brass knocker gleaming in the early light, a servant sweeping the front steps. These are the homes of the merchants, the ship owners, the men who built their fortunes on the triangular trade. Liverpool to Africa, Africa to the Americas, Americas back to Liverpool. A circuit of commerce that made this city one of the richest in the entire British Empire. The slave trade was formally abolished a few years back, 1807. But the wealth it created is still here, still visible, in the elegant Georgian squares, in the grand public buildings, in the fine clothes of the merchants' wives as they're helped into their carriages, and in the cellars where people like you live underground because there's nowhere else affordable. That's Liverpool for you. A city of extremes, grand wealth and crushing poverty existing side by side, sometimes literally next door to each other, the rich stepping over the poor in the street, the poor staring up at windows they'll never see the inside of. You turn a corner and there it is, the waterfront. Even after all these years of living here, it still takes your breath away. Not in a beautiful way, more in a how is this even possible way. The docks stretch along the riverfront for what feels like miles. Quays and basins and warehouses and cranes, ships of every size crowding against each other. Tall ships with their masts creating a forest of wood against the sky. Smaller vessels darting between them like insects. The River Mersey beyond, grey and choppy, dotted with more ships waiting their turn to unload. This is where Liverpool's power comes from. This vast, complicated, constantly moving machine of commerce. Cotton from America, sugar from the Caribbean, tobacco, coffee, rum, timber from Canada, iron ore from wherever they're digging it up these days, all of it flowing through Liverpool, all of it handled by men like you. The dock gates are already surrounded by a crowd. There must be 100 men here, maybe more, all of them hoping for work, all of them knowing there isn't enough for everyone. You recognise some faces, the tall Irishman with the broken nose, the older fellow who used to be a sailor until he lost 3 fingers to a winch accident, the group of Welsh lads who stick together and speak their own language and don't mix much with anyone else. You push your way through to find a spot near the front. This matters. The hiring foremen tend to pick from what's closest. If you're stuck at the back, you might as well not have come. A man climbs up onto a crate. Big belly. Red face. The kind of face that comes from drinking too much beer and eating too much meat while the people around him go hungry. This is one of the master stevedores, the men who organise the dock labour, the men who decide whether you work today or starve. He scans the crowd with the expression of someone picking livestock at market. Nobody speaks, nobody moves. 100 men holding their breath, waiting to be chosen, knowing that most of them won't be. The stevedore points. You, not you there, the big one. No, not you, the other big one. You and you. His finger sweeps across the crowd like a scythe, cutting away the ones he wants, leaving the rest to wither. He points at you. You step forward, trying not to look too eager, trying not to look too relieved, acting like you expected this all along, like there was never any doubt. You're in. Today at least you'll work. Today you'll eat. Today your sister might have enough for a bit of broth to ease her coughing. Tomorrow is tomorrow's problem. The stevedore waves you and the other chosen ones toward the quay. Behind you, the unchosen begin to drift away. Some will try their luck at other dock gates. Some will look for different work. Some will give up and go home to tell their families that there's nothing today. You don't look back. You can't afford to. The clock is ticking. The ships are waiting. And somewhere below their wooden decks, hundreds of tons of cargo need to be moved by human hands. Your hands. The hull of the ship looms above you like a cliff face. The smell here is different from the street. Salt, tar, the particular mustiness of cotton bales that have spent weeks at sea, wet rope, fish, something that might be spices. A ladder leads up to the deck. You climb without hesitation, hand over hand. Your body knows this routine even if your mind is still waking up. At the top, a crew member barely glances at you before pointing toward the hold. Down you go, into the belly of the beast. It's dark down here. A few oil lamps providing just enough light to avoid tripping over things. The hold is packed with cargo, bales of cotton, each one weighing several 100 pounds, barrels of sugar, sticky and sweet-smelling, crates of tobacco that make your eyes water. Your job is simple. Pick it up, carry it out, set it down on the quay, go back for more, repeat, over and over, for the next 12 hours, maybe 14, however long it takes to empty the hold. No breaks, no food provided, no water, unless you brought your own. You brought your own. A leather flask filled from the courtyard pump this morning. The water tastes like rust and something else you'd rather not think about. But it's wet, and after a few hours of hauling cotton, you'll drink anything. The first bale is the hardest, cold muscles straining against dead weight. You hook your cotton hook into the burlap and pull. Drag it across the rough planks of the hold. Wrestle it up the ladder, across the deck, down the gangplank, onto the quay where other men are stacking it into carts, then back down for another one, and another, and another. The hours blur together. Your world shrinks to the simple rhythm of labour. Lift, carry, set down, return. The sun rises somewhere beyond the smoke haze. You can tell because the light changes, gets brighter, gets warmer, though you barely notice. Down in the hold, it's always the same murky dimness. By midday, your arms are trembling. Your back is screaming. There's a blister forming on your right hand where the cotton hook rubs against your palm. You ignore it. Everyone here has blisters. Blisters are just part of the deal. One of the other labourers, a young man about your age, collapses against a stack of crates. His name is James, or John, something like that. You've worked alongside him a few times but never really talked. There's not much talking down here. Not much breath to spare for conversation when every bit of air you have is going into moving cargo. He's pale, sweating despite the chill of the hold. His hands are shaking. When did you eat last, you ask him. He has to think about it for a moment. Yesterday, maybe the day before. You reach into your pocket and pull out the piece of bread you brought from home. Half a loaf, really. You'd been saving it for later, for when the hunger really hit. But this lad looks like he's about to faint, and if he faints, the stevedore might not hire him tomorrow, might not hire anyone who associates with him either. That's how it works. Weakness is contagious, or at least the bosses treat it that way. Here, eat this. He looks at you like you've just offered him a bag of gold. It's just bread, stale bread at that. But down here, in the hold of this ship, surrounded by millions of pounds worth of cargo that neither of you will ever own even a fraction of, a piece of stale bread can save a life. He eats. You go back to work. This is Liverpool. This is survival. This is the early 1800s, and the sun is barely at its peak. The church bells toll again somewhere in the distance. St. Nicholas, probably. That familiar sound carrying over the rooftops and the smoke and the chaos of the docks, reminding everyone that time is passing, that the day is moving forward even when it feels like you're trapped in an endless loop of lifting and carrying and setting down. You think about that spire, the one the sailors used as a landmark, the one they called Our Lady and St. Nicholas. It's been standing there since medieval times, watching over this waterfront, watching ships come and go, watching Liverpool transform from a tiny fishing village into this sprawling monster of a city. You wonder what the church thought of all those slave ships that used to sail from these docks. Wonder if anyone ever prayed for the people packed into those holds. Probably not. Probably they just prayed for profit. But that's history now. Ancient history almost. The trade ended years ago. The ships carry different cargo these days. Cotton instead of people. Sugar instead of suffering. Well, less suffering anyway. A different kind of suffering. The kind where you work until your body breaks instead of the kind where you're worked until your body breaks as someone else's property. Progress, they call it. You grip your cotton hook and descend back into the darkness. The afternoon crawls by one cotton bale at a time. Your shoulders have gone numb, which is actually a blessing because it means they've stopped hurting. Your hands are a different story. The blister on your right palm has burst open, leaving raw skin that stings every time you grip the cotton hook. You've wrapped a strip of cloth around it, torn from the hem of your shirt. It helps a little, not much. The lad you gave your bread to earlier is still working, still on his feet. He catches your eye across the hold and gives you a small nod. That's all. No words, just acknowledgement. In this world, that's practically a declaration of lifelong friendship. The hold is emptying out. What started as a solid wall of cargo has become a scattered collection of stragglers. The final bales, the last few barrels, the crates that got shoved into corners and forgotten until now. You can see the ship's ribs now, the wooden bones of the vessel exposed where the cargo used to be. There's bilge water sloshing around at the bottom, black and foul smelling. You try not to step in it. You fail. One more trip, then another. Then finally, blessedly, the stevedore appears at the top of the ladder. That's it, lads. She's empty. You climb out of the hold for the last time. The fresh air hits you like a slap. Well, fresh is probably too strong a word. The air on deck still smells like Liverpool, still has that characteristic blend of smoke and salt and sewage, but compared to the stale, suffocating atmosphere of the hold, it feels like breathing mountain air. The sun is going down. Has been going down for a while now, apparently. You were so focused on the work that you didn't notice the light changing, didn't notice the shadows lengthening across the quay, didn't notice that you've been at this for nearly 12 hours. Your body notices now, though, all at once, every muscle, every joint, every fibre of your being screaming that it wants to lie down and never get up again. But first, payment. The stevedore has set up a little table near the warehouse. He's got a ledger open in front of him and a cash box at his elbow. The workers line up, shuffling forward one by one to receive their wages. When it's your turn, he barely looks at you. Just runs his finger down the list, finds your name, and counts out the coins. 4 shillings, 6pence. You take the money and step aside. 4 and 6 for 12 hours of back-breaking labour. Roughly 4pence an hour. Less than what some of these merchants spend on a single glass of wine with their dinner. But it's money. Real money. Coins in your pocket. Enough to keep the cellar roof over your head for another week. Enough to buy food. Enough to maybe, if you're careful, set a little aside for the days when there's no work at all. You count the coins twice. Old habit. Then you tuck them deep into your pocket, keeping your hand over them as you walk. Pickpockets work these docks. Everyone knows it. Kids mostly. Fast little fingers that can lift a man's wages before he even knows they're gone. You've seen it happen to others. You're not about to let it happen to you. The quay is quieter now. The frenzy of the day has died down. Ships are settling in for the night, their crews either ashore drinking or below deck sleeping. The cranes stand still. The carts have stopped their endless rumbling. Even the seagulls seem to have called it a day, though a few still wheel overhead, screaming at nothing in particular. You start walking, not toward home, not yet. Your legs are moving on their own, carrying you along the waterfront, and you let them. After 12 hours in a dark hold, you need to see the sky for a while, need to feel the wind on your face, need to remember that the world is bigger than cotton bales and ship ladders. The River Mersey stretches out to your left, grey water under a grey sky, but there's a strip of orange and pink at the horizon where the sun is making its exit. Beautiful, almost. If you ignore the floating garbage and the coal smoke and the raw sewage outlet emptying into the water about 50 yards upstream. You walk past warehouse after warehouse, massive brick buildings, 4 and 5 stories tall, their windows dark now that the working day is done. These buildings hold more wealth than you'll ever see in your lifetime. Cotton worth thousands of pounds, sugar, tobacco, rum. All of it sitting behind those locked doors, guarded by night watchmen with cudgels and dogs. Sometimes you wonder what it would be like to own just one of those barrels. Just one. A barrel of sugar or a bale of cotton. Something you could sell. Something that could change your life. But that's not how it works. The cargo belongs to the merchants. The merchants own the ships. The ships employ the stevedores. The stevedores hire you. And at the end of the chain, you get 4pence an hour to move someone else's wealth from one place to another. That's the system. That's how it's always been. You keep walking. The waterfront curves around, and suddenly you're looking at something different. Something that doesn't quite fit with the warehouses and the wharves and the general grime of the docks. A building. No, not just a building. A palace. The Liverpool town hall rises up from the street like it wandered in from some other city entirely. Some clean, elegant, civilized city where people don't live in cellars and children don't work in rope factories and the average person lives past 17. It's enormous. Columns across the front, tall windows gleaming in the last of the daylight, stone that's actually white, or close to it, instead of the soot-stained grey of everything else in Liverpool. There's a dome on top, and on top of the dome a statue. You've seen this building before, obviously. You've walked past it 100 times, but you've never really looked at it. Never stood here with 4 shillings and 6pence in your pocket and actually thought about what it represents. The town hall is where the power lives, where the merchants meet to discuss their business, where the council makes decisions about the city, where balls are held in grand ballrooms while people like your sister cough blood into their handkerchiefs. That statue on top, you've heard people say it's Minerva, or maybe they said Britannia, some goddess or other. She's holding something, a spear maybe, or a shield. It's hard to tell from down here. She's just a dark shape against the darkening sky looking down on all of it. The docks, the warehouses, the courts and cellars, the whole messy, stinking, magnificent disaster of a city. Wonder what she thinks of us, you mutter to nobody in particular. A man walking past gives you an odd look. You ignore him. The building wasn't always like this, you know. Someone told you once. One of the older dock workers who's been around long enough to remember things. There was a fire back in 1790-something. The whole place burned. Took years to rebuild. Cost a fortune. A fortune that came from the ships in the harbour, from the cargo in the warehouses, from the trade. All of it. Every carved column, every pane of glass, every tile on that domed roof, paid for by the things that pass through this port, including the things that used to scream. You don't like to think about that too much. Nobody does. It's history now. Ancient history. The slave trade ended before you were born. But sometimes, when you're hauling cotton up from a ship's hold, you wonder if this is the same hold where people were once packed in like cargo. If these are the same chains, repurposed to secure barrels instead of wrists. Probably not. Probably they use different ships now, different equipment. Probably. A carriage rattles past and you step back to avoid the splash of mud from its wheels. Through the window you catch a glimpse of the passengers. A man in a tall hat, a woman in silk, jewels at her throat catching the lamplight. They don't see you. People like that never see people like you. You're part of the scenery, part of the machinery, the invisible hands that move their cargo and clean their streets and disappear back into the cellars when the work is done. The carriage stops in front of the town hall. A footman jumps down to open the door. The man in the tall hat steps out first, then turns to help the woman. They're laughing about something, some joke you'll never hear, some world you'll never enter. They disappear through the grand front doors, and just like that they're gone, swallowed up by a building you'll never set foot inside. You should go home. Your sister is waiting. Your legs are about to give out. There's nothing for you here except a view of a life you'll never have. But you stand there for another minute anyway, watching the lamplighters work their way down the street, watching the windows of the town hall begin to glow as candles are lit inside, imagining the ballrooms, the crystal chandeliers, the tables groaning with food. Your stomach growls, loudly, right. Time to go. You turn away from the town hall and start walking toward the maze of streets that will eventually lead you home. The evening crowd is different from the morning crowd. Fewer carts and workers, more people heading to and from the pubs, more laughter, more shouting, more of the particular energy that comes when the working day ends and the drinking begins. Liverpool has a lot of pubs. Someone once told you that if you lined up every drinking establishment in the city, end to end, they'd stretch for 11.5 miles. You don't know if that's true. You've never tried to count. But it sounds about right. On every street, every corner, there's somewhere to buy beer or gin or rum. Somewhere to spend the wages you just earned. Somewhere to forget for a few hours that you'll have to do it all again tomorrow. You're tempted. Your throat is dry. Your muscles are aching. A drink would take the edge off, would make the long walk home feel shorter, would give you something to do with your hands besides pressing them against the coins in your pocket. But no, not tonight. Tonight, every penny matters. You keep walking. The streets get narrower as you move away from the waterfront. The buildings get taller. The light gets dimmer. Gas lamps here and there, but not enough. Never enough. Shadows pool in doorways and alleys. Shapes move in the darkness. Some of them human. Some of them probably rats. You walk faster. This part of town is where the Irish live. Mostly. Wave after wave of them, coming across the sea to escape whatever horrors they're escaping from back home. Famine, poverty, things you don't fully understand because you've never been to Ireland and probably never will. They come to Liverpool thinking it'll be better. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. You hear their accents everywhere, in the shouts of children playing in the gutters, in the arguments spilling out of tenement windows, in the songs drifting from the pubs, sad songs about places they'll never see again. There are Welsh here too, and Scots, and people from every county in England who came looking for work. Liverpool is a city of strangers, a city where everyone is from somewhere else, a city that swallows you up and spits you out and doesn't much care what happens to you in between. You pass a group of children huddled in a doorway. 5 of them, maybe 6. The youngest can't be more than 5 or 6 years old. They're not playing. They're just sitting there, watching, waiting for something, or someone. One of them makes eye contact with you, a boy, thin face, sharp eyes, the kind of eyes that have seen too much and grown up too fast. You know what he's doing. What they're all doing. They're working, just not the kind of work that shows up in ledgers or pays wages at the end of the day. They're watching for marks, for victims, for anyone stupid enough to walk through here with money in their pocket and their guard down. You keep your hand on your coins and keep moving. The boy doesn't follow you. Maybe you look too poor to bother with. Maybe you look too alert. Maybe he's waiting for someone better. Either way, you're grateful. A few more streets, a few more turns. The buildings pressing in closer and closer until you can almost touch both walls with your outstretched arms. The smell getting worse. The sounds getting louder. Babies crying. Dogs barking. Someone somewhere smashing something made of glass. Home. Or what passes for it. You duck through the narrow passage into the courtyard. The pump is still there. The privy is still there, reeking as always. The trapdoor leading down to your cellar is still there right where you left it. You lift it open and descend into the darkness. Your sister is awake, sitting up against the wall, wrapped in a blanket that's more holes than fabric. The older man, George, or whatever his name is snoring in his corner. The woman with the baby is nursing or trying to. The baby isn't crying right now. small mercies. You made it back, your sister says. Her voice is hoarse. The cough is getting worse. You can hear it in every word. Made it back. You sit down next to her and pull out your wages. In the darkness you can barely see the coins, but you count them by feel. 4 shillings, 6pence, all still there. Good day, she says. Good enough. You give her one of the shillings. For food tomorrow. For whatever medicine she can find. For whatever might help. She takes it without arguing. That's how you know how bad she's feeling. Normally she'd insist you keep it. Normally she'd say she's fine, she doesn't need anything, save your money. Tonight she just closes her fingers around the coin and says thank you. You lean back against the damp stone wall and close your eyes. 12 hours of hauling cotton, 4 and 6 in wages, minus 1 shilling for your sister. That leaves 3 and 6. Enough to pay the rent. Enough to eat. Enough to survive another week. If the work holds out. If the ships keep coming. If your body doesn't give out before your luck does. Above you, through 8 feet of earth and stone, you can hear Liverpool settling in for the night. The last carts rumbling home, the drunks singing their way between pubs, the church bells of St. Nicholas tolling the hour. You count the bells. 9, 10, 10 o'clock. Late, but not too late. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. Wake up at 6, walk to the docks, hope to be chosen, haul cargo until your arms fall off, collect your wages, walk home, sleep, repeat. This is your life. This is what survival looks like in Liverpool in the early 1800s. But for now, in this moment, you're done. The day is over. Your sister is beside you. There's money in your pocket, and somewhere above the smoke and the clouds, there might even be stars. You wouldn't know. You've never seen them from down here. Sleep comes slowly. It always does in this damp darkness. But eventually it comes. And for a few hours at least you're somewhere else. Somewhere the air is clean and the beds are soft and nobody has to work themselves to death just to earn enough for bread. Maybe somewhere like that exists. Somewhere in the world. Maybe someday you'll find out. For now, though, there's only Liverpool, only the Cellar, only the endless, grinding, beautiful, terrible struggle to survive. And tomorrow you get to do it all over again. 3 days later, and the ships have stopped coming. It happens sometimes. Bad weather out in the Irish Sea, delays at the American ports, some bureaucratic tangle that keeps the cargo sitting in warehouses across the Atlantic instead of here where it belongs. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. No ships, no work, no wages. You've been to the dock gates every morning, stood in the crowd with the other men, watched the stevedores shake their heads and walk away. Nothing today, lads. Try again tomorrow. Tomorrow comes. Same story. So now you're walking through Liverpool with nothing to do and nowhere to be, which sounds like a luxury until you remember that every day without work is a day without pay. Every day without pay is a day closer to not making rent. Every day closer to not making rent is a day closer to the street. And your sister is getting worse. The cough has deepened. It comes from somewhere down in her chest now, a wet, rattling sound that keeps you awake at night. She's been spitting blood into a rag she thinks you haven't noticed. You've noticed. You just don't know what to do about it. The shilling you gave her bought some medicine from a woman down the street. Some kind of tonic. Smelled like alcohol and something bitter. Might have been herbs. Might have been poison for all you know. It didn't help. Nothing helps. But she needs to eat. You both need to eat. And that means going to market. St. John's Market is about a 15-minute walk from your cellar, through the courts and alleys and streets you've come to know so well, you could navigate them blind. Past the dead horse that's finally been cleared away, leaving only a dark stain on the cobblestones. Past the gin shop where a woman is already drunk at 10 in the morning, leaning against the doorframe and singing something sad. Past the children who are definitely pickpockets, and the children who are probably pickpockets, and the children who are just children, though it's hard to tell the difference sometimes. You keep your hand on your coins, 2 shillings and 3 pence left. That's all that stands between you and nothing. The market announces itself before you see it. First, the noise, a roar of voices that grows louder with every step, hundreds of people shouting over each other, vendors calling out their wares, customers haggling, children screaming, dogs barking. Somewhere, someone is playing a fiddle, though you can barely hear it over the chaos. Then the smell. Oh God, the smell! Fish. That's the first thing that hits you. Raw fish. Old fish. Fish that's been sitting out since dawn and is starting to get ideas about its future. It mingles with the meat smell, blood and sawdust and something gamey that might be rabbit or might be cat. Hard to tell. Nobody asks too many questions at St. John's Market. Under that, vegetables. Cabbage and onions and potatoes, some of them fresh, some of them not so fresh, all of them adding their own particular notes to the symphony of stench. Crushed produce on the floor, ground into the stone by 1,000 passing feet. Spilled liquids, rotting scraps, and of course, people, unwashed, sweating, packed in shoulder to shoulder. The same unwashed body smell you know from your cellar, multiplied by hundreds. Welcome to St. John's Market, the place where Liverpool feeds itself. You step through the entrance and into the crush. The building is enormous, a vast iron-roofed hall that stretches out in every direction, supported by cast-iron columns that rise up like the trunks of metal trees. Light filters down through glass panels in the ceiling, illuminating the chaos below. Stalls and tables and stands crammed together with barely enough room to walk between them. Every inch of space put to use. Every surface covered in something for sale. This is cutting edge, apparently. Modern engineering. The iron frame, the glass roof. All of it designed to bring order to the chaos of street markets, to provide shelter, to improve hygiene. The hygiene part might need some work. The floor is slick with something you'd rather not identify. Your boots squelch with every step. A woman pushes past you carrying a basket of eels still wriggling. A man is butchering a pig right there in the middle of the aisle, blood running into the cracks between the stones. 2 children are fighting over what appears to be a dropped turnip. You navigate through it all, keeping your head down, keeping your hand on your money, keeping your eyes open for both bargains and threats. The fish section is the worst, or maybe the best, depending on your perspective. The fish is cheap here, really cheap. Herring at a halfpenny apiece, fish heads for almost nothing, which can make a decent soup if you know what you're doing. The problem is the smell, and the flies, and the nagging suspicion that some of this fish has been here long enough to apply for citizenship. But protein is protein. You can't afford to be picky. How much for the herrings, you ask a woman behind one of the stalls. She's got a face like leather and hands that have clearly gutted about 1 million fish. She looks you up and down, assessing, deciding how much she can squeeze out of you. Penny for 2, she says. You shake your head. Halfpenny each. So 2 for a penny is robbery. A girl pushing a handcart nearly takes out your knees. You step aside without breaking eye contact with the fishwoman. 3 for a penny, she offers. Better. You hand over the coin and she wraps 3 small herrings in a piece of paper that's already translucent with old fish oil. The smell is going to be with you for the rest of the day. But at least there'll be dinner tonight. You move on, past the cheese sellers with their wheels of hard yellow cheese that you can't afford, past the bread stalls where the loaves are actually reasonably priced, but you know a bakery closer to home that's cheaper still, past the meat section where butchers are hawking everything from beef to pork, to things that are probably beef or pork but might also be horse. Horse meat is illegal to sell. Everyone knows this. Everyone also knows that some of these butchers aren't exactly strict about the regulations. If it's cheap enough, people don't ask questions. Hunger has a way of making you flexible about these things. You stop at a vegetable stand. Potatoes, onions, cabbage. The holy trinity of poor people's cooking. A few potatoes and an onion, combined with those herrings, will make something almost like a meal, almost like enough. The vendor is a young man, about your age. Tired eyes, dirty fingernails. He looks like he's been here since before dawn and wants nothing more than to be somewhere else. 4 potatoes and an onion, you say? He weighs them out on a battered scale. 3 pence, he says. You hand over the coins. Your stash is shrinking. 1 shilling and 11 pence left. A week ago you felt almost comfortable. Now you're watching every halfpenny like it might be your last. The vegetables go into your pockets alongside the fish. You must look ridiculous. Lumpy and misshapen and smelling like the catch of the day. But that's the price of not having a basket. Baskets cost money. Money you don't have. You're about to leave when something catches your eye. A commotion near the entrance. Raised voices. A crowd forming around something you can't see. You should ignore it. It's none of your business. Getting involved in other people's problems is a good way to create problems of your own. But curiosity wins. It always does. You push through the crowd until you can see what's happening. A man has a boy by the collar. The man is red-faced and furious, shaking the boy like a rag doll. The boy is maybe 10, 11, skinny, quick-looking, familiar somehow. You recognize him. It's the kid from the doorway, the one who watched you walk past the other night with those sharp, too old eyes. Caught him with his hand in me pocket, the man is shouting. Little thief. Someone call the watchman. The boy isn't struggling, isn't crying, isn't doing anything except staring straight ahead with an expression that says he knows exactly what's coming and has already accepted it. This is what happens to pickpockets when they get caught. Sometimes it's a beating, sometimes it's the watchman, and then the courts, and then prison, or transportation, or worse. A boy that age could be sent to Australia, could be hanged technically, though they don't hang children for petty theft anymore. Usually. The crowd is growing. People love a spectacle. Even here, surrounded by fish guts and rotting vegetables, they'll stop to watch someone else's misery. Makes them feel better about their own, maybe. Someone should do something, a woman mutters. Not that she's volunteering. The man shakes the boy again. Where's me money? What did you do with it? The boy says nothing. His silence seems to make the man angrier. You should walk away. This isn't your problem. That boy would have robbed you if he'd had the chance. He's a thief, a criminal. Whatever happens to him, he brought it on himself. But he's also a child. A hungry, desperate child doing what hungry, desperate children do. And you remember what it was like. Before the dock work. Before you were big enough to lift cotton bales. Before anyone would hire you for anything. You remember the streets, the hunger, the things you did that you don't like to think about anymore. You push forward before you can talk yourself out of it. Hold on, you say. The words are out before you can stop them. Just hold on a minute. The man turns. What's it to you? You don't have a good answer for that. So you make something up. He's my brother's boy. My nephew. I know him. He's not right in the head, see? Doesn't know what he's doing half the time. The lie comes easily. Too easily. The man's grip on the boy's collar loosens just slightly. Your nephew, he says, suspicious. That's right. I'll make it good. Whatever he took, I'll pay for it. You have no idea what you're doing. This is stupid. This is dangerous. This is going to cost you money you can't afford to lose. But the boy is looking at you now. Those sharp eyes suddenly uncertain. Confused. Nobody's ever stepped in for him before. That much is obvious. The man considers. He's still angry, but he's also practical. A bird in the hand and all that. He took 2 shillings, he says. That's a lie. There's no way this man had 2 shillings in his pocket. Not dressed like that. Not here. You'd bet your life the actual amount was 6pence or less. He took 6pence, you say. Maybe 8. That's what these kids usually go for. Quick grabs, small amounts. Anything more and they can't run fast enough. The man's face tells you you're right. Fine, he growls. 8pence. And you keep him away from this market or next time I'll break his fingers myself. You hand over 8pence. 8pence you desperately needed. 8pence that represents meals, security, survival. The man releases the boy and disappears into the crowd, muttering about thieves and vermin and the decline of civilized society. The boy stands there, staring at you. Why'd you do that? He asks. Good question. You're not sure you have an answer. 'Cause I'm an idiot, you say. Now get out of here before someone else catches you. He doesn't move. Those eyes, assessing you, trying to figure out your angle. Everyone's got an angle. That's what his eyes say. Nobody does anything for free. I don't want anything from you, you say. Just go. And maybe try not to get caught next time. Something shifts in his face. The wariness doesn't disappear exactly, but it settles into something else. Something almost like respect. He reaches into his shirt and pulls out a coin. Hands it to you. It's a shilling. What's this? What I actually took, he says. That man was lying about the 8pence. I got a shilling off him before he noticed. You stare at the coin, then at the boy, then back at the coin. He's giving you money. This child pickpocket is giving you money. More than you just paid to save him. Consider it even, he says. And then he's gone. Vanished into the crowd like smoke. Like he was never there at all. You stand in the middle of St. John's Market holding a shilling that a 10-year-old thief just handed you, surrounded by fish and vegetables and the endless noise of people trying to survive. This city, this mad, impossible, beautiful, terrible city. You pocket the shilling and start walking home. The fish is already starting to smell worse, if that's possible. The potatoes are bruising against your hip with every step, but you're smiling. You can't help it. In a world that seems designed to grind people down, sometimes the strangest things happen. Sometimes a pickpocket pays you back. Your sister is asleep when you get home, or pretending to be asleep, which amounts to the same thing. The cellar is quiet except for her breathing. That rattling, wet breathing that scares you more every day. You set the food down and start preparing dinner. There's a small fire pit in the corner. Not really allowed, but everyone does it. You get a little fire going with scraps of wood and dried leaves, just enough to cook the fish. The smoke rises up through the cracks in the trap door. Nobody complains. Everybody does it. The whole court probably smells like smoked herring by now. The fish sizzles. The potatoes go into the pot of water you fetched from the pump earlier. The onion gets chopped and added to the mix. It's not much. It's barely anything, really. But it's food. It's dinner. It's another day survived. Your sister wakes up to the smell of cooking. "You're back," she says. Her voice is worse than this morning. Weaker. "I'm back. Got some fish. Potatoes. You need to eat." She doesn't argue. That scares you more than anything. You divide the food onto 2 plates. Chipped plates. Salvaged from somewhere. You don't remember where. The portions are small, but they're equal. She tries to give you some of hers. You refuse. She needs it more. Outside, somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls. Not St. Nicholas this time. A different church. There are so many churches in Liverpool. They seem to breed like rabbits. Every denomination, every faction, all of them promising salvation while people die in cellars 8 feet underground. You eat in silence. The fish is better than you expected. Fresh enough. The potatoes are filling. The onion adds something that almost resembles flavour. For a few minutes, everything is almost okay. Almost peaceful. Just the 2 of you, sharing a meal, pretending that tomorrow isn't coming, but tomorrow is always coming. That's the thing about tomorrows. They never stop. You finish your food, clean the plates, bank the fire so it won't burn through the night. Your sister has fallen asleep again. Real sleep this time, not pretending. You can tell by the way she's breathing. Still that terrible rattle, but deeper now, slower. You lie down next to her and stare up at the darkness where the ceiling should be. 1 shilling and 14 pence left, plus the shilling from the boy. 2 shillings and 14 pence total. Enough for maybe another week if the work comes back. If the ships start arriving again. If nothing else goes wrong. In Liverpool, something always goes wrong. But that's tomorrow's problem. For now, you close your eyes and let the darkness take you. The sound of the city fades. The smell of fish and smoke and underground air fades. Everything fades into the soft, empty space between waking and sleeping. And somewhere out there, in the maze of streets and courts and cellars, a 10-year-old pickpocket is probably robbing someone else. You hope he doesn't get caught. Sunday morning. No work today, even if there were ships. The Sabbath is the one day when Liverpool pretends to be respectable. The docks fall quiet. The warehouses stay locked. The endless machinery of commerce grinds to a halt for a few hours, so that everyone can put on their best clothes and pretend they're not the same people who were cursing and spitting and shoveling horse manure yesterday. Your best clothes are the same as your worst clothes. The shirt with fewer holes, the trousers held up with rope, but you've washed your face at least. Use the last of the water from the pump to scrub the worst of the dock grime from your skin. You almost look presentable. Your sister wanted to come. Insisted, actually, in that stubborn way she has when she's made up her mind about something. But the coughing fit that seized her this morning settled the argument. She's staying in the cellar, resting, trying to breathe without sounding like she's drowning. You told her you'd pray for her. She laughed, a wet, rattling laugh that turned into another cough. Pray for yourself, she said. God's not listening to either of us. Maybe she's right. But you're going anyway. Not because you believe exactly, but because on Sundays the churches open their doors, and for a few hours you can sit somewhere that isn't underground. Somewhere with light and air and space. Somewhere that smells like candle wax instead of sewage. St. Nicholas is the closest. The sailors' church. The one whose bells have been marking the hours of your life for as long as you can remember. You've never actually been inside. The walk takes you through streets that are strangely quiet. Shops closed. Pubs closed. at least officially, though everyone knows there are back rooms where a man can get a drink if he knows where to look. Children playing in the gutters, but fewer of them, dressed a little nicer, hair combed, like their mothers have been at them with spit and determination, trying to make them look like proper Christian children for a few hours. The church appears ahead of you, rising up from the waterfront like it's grown there, like it's as much a part of Liverpool as the docks themselves. And it is, really. It's been here since medieval times, watched over this riverbank while Liverpool grew from a fishing village to a market town to whatever it is now. This sprawling, stinking, magnificent monster of a city. The spire is what catches your eye first. Tall and elegant, pointing straight up at the sky like a finger accusing heaven of something. That spire has guided sailors home for generations. You've heard the old-timers talk about it, how they'd be out on the Irish Sea, weeks at sea, months at sea, and then they'd spot that spire on the horizon and know they'd made it, know they'd survived, know that Liverpool was waiting with all its chaos and its filth and its promise of solid ground. But the spire you're looking at isn't the original. An old man told you that once, one of the night watchmen at the docks killing time during a quiet shift. The spire you see now was built to replace the one that fell. 1810, he said. February. A Sunday morning, just like this. The bells were ringing. Families were gathering for service. Children from the local charity school, the poor kids who got their education from the church's generosity, were filing into the nave. And then the spire came down, just like that. No warning. One moment it was standing there, solid as it had been for 60 years. The next moment it was falling, crashing through the roof of the church, stone and timber and slate coming down on the people below. 25 dead. That's what the old man said. 25 people killed in an instant, most of them children. You think about that as you approach the church doors. Think about those families walking in on a peaceful Sunday morning, just like you're doing now. Think about the parents who lost children, the children who lost parents, the horror of it. One moment you're praying, the next moment the sky is falling. They rebuilt, of course. Liverpool always rebuilds. The spire went back up, taller and stronger than before. The roof was repaired, the pews were replaced. Within a few years, you probably couldn't even tell anything had happened, unless you knew where to look. You step through the doors and into the church. The smell hits you first. Candle wax, incense, something floral, probably from the arrangements near the altar. It's so different from everything outside that for a moment you just stand there, breathing it in. The space is larger than you expected. High ceiling, tall windows letting in the grey Liverpool light, wooden pews stretching toward the altar, already filling up with worshippers. Working people mostly, though you spot a few finer coats near the front. The merchants who choose to worship here instead of at one of the fancier churches inland. You find a seat near the back, slide onto the hard wooden bench and try to make yourself small, unnoticeable, just another poor soul seeking a few hours of peace. The service begins. The vicar's voice drones on, rising and falling in that particular rhythm that church voices have. You don't really listen to the words. They wash over you like the sound of the sea, comforting in their familiarity even if the meaning doesn't quite land. Instead, you look around. The walls are covered in plaques, memorial tablets, names and dates and little inscriptions commemorating the dead. Some of them are clearly wealthy people, ship owners, merchants, men of standing and substance. Their tablets are large, ornate, carved with angels and anchors and other symbols of maritime prosperity. Others are simpler. Small brass plates with names you don't recognise. Sailors, probably. Men who died at sea and never came home. Men whose bodies are somewhere at the bottom of the Atlantic, but whose names at least made it back to Liverpool. And then there are the ones from 1810. You spot them near the side entrance, a group of tablets clustered together, smaller than the merchant memorials, less elaborate, but there are so many of them, name after name after name. The children: Mary, aged 9, William, aged 7, Elizabeth, aged 11. The names blur together. A whole generation of Liverpool's poor wiped out in an instant because a spire that had stood for 60 years decided that this particular Sunday was the day it would fall. You wonder if anyone saw it coming, if there were cracks in the stonework, warning signs that people ignored because the spire had always been there and surely always would be. Or if it really was that sudden, that random, that cruel. Life in Liverpool teaches you that things can change in an instant, that the ground beneath your feet is never as solid as it seems, that everything you have can be taken away before you even have time to scream. But still, children in church on a Sunday morning, that seems like a particular kind of cruelty, the kind that makes you wonder if your sister is right about God not listening. The service ends. People begin to file out, nodding to neighbours, exchanging quiet greetings. You stay in your pew for a moment longer, still looking at those memorial tablets. A voice interrupts your thoughts. Lost someone, did you? You turn. An old man has settled onto the pew beside you. He's ancient, face like a weather-beaten cliff, hands gnarled and spotted with age, but his eyes are sharp, bright, the eyes of someone who's seen everything and is still somehow paying attention. No, you say, just looking. He nods, follows your gaze to the tablets on the wall. 1810, he says. I remember it. You look at him more closely. He'd have to be ancient to remember something from over 20 years ago, but he looks ancient, maybe old enough. I was a boy, he continues, not much older than those children. Would have been in that church myself, except I was sick that morning. My mother kept me home. He says it flatly, no drama, just a fact. Sometimes I think about that, he says. All those years I've had, all the voyages, all the places I've seen, and I only got them because I had a fever that Sunday morning. You don't know what to say to that, so you don't say anything. The old man shifts on the bench. His joints crack audibly. You work the docks, he says. It's not a question. How do you know? Your hands, the way you sit. I worked ships for 40 years. I can spot a dockman from a mile away. He holds up his own hands, scarred, calloused, missing the tip of one finger on his left hand. Winch accident, he says, noticing your look. 1823. Got off lucky. Could have lost the whole hand. You think about the older dock worker you've seen at the gates, the one missing 3 fingers. Everyone's got a story like that. Everyone who works the waterfront long enough. What ships did you sail on, you ask? The old man is quiet for a moment. Something shifts in his face, a shadow passing behind those bright eyes. All kinds, he says eventually. Merchantmen, traders, some of the fast packet ships running mail to America. He pauses, and before that, before the trade ended, some of the other ships too. You know what he means. Everyone in Liverpool knows what the other ships were. The triangular trade. Liverpool to Africa, Africa to the Americas, Americas back to Liverpool. The circuit of commerce that built this city. The circuit that carried human cargo. You don't know what to say. What do you say to someone who was part of that? Someone who helped transport people in chains across an ocean. Someone who's now sitting in a church, old and weathered, waiting to die like everyone else. The old man seems to read your thoughts. I was young, he says. Didn't think about what we were doing. Didn't want to think about it. The pay was good. The work was work. You loaded cargo. You sailed. You unloaded. You didn't ask questions about what the cargo was. He looks at his hands again. But you hear things. Over the years. You hear what happened to those people after they left your ship. You meet men who worked the plantations. You read the pamphlets the abolitionists hand out. And you start to understand what you were part of. His voice has gotten quieter, almost a whisper. I've been coming to this church for 20 years now, every Sunday, praying for something I can't name. Forgiveness, maybe. Except I don't think there's enough forgiveness in the world for what we did. The church is nearly empty now. Just you and this old man and the memorial tablets on the walls. The candles are burning low. The grey light from the windows seems dimmer than before. Why are you telling me this, you ask? He shrugs. A tired, ancient movement. Because you're young. Because you work the docks. Because I see myself in you, 40 years ago, before I knew what I know now. He turns to look at you directly, those sharp eyes fixing on yours. This city, he says, this whole city, every building, every street, every stone, it's all built on blood. The town hall, the grand houses, the warehouses full of cotton, all of it paid for by suffering, by people who were bought and sold like cattle, by children who died in chains before they ever saw land again. He gestures toward the altar, even this church. You think those merchants donated money out of Christian charity? They donated to ease their consciences, to buy their way into heaven, to pretend that they weren't monsters. His hand falls back to his lap. The trade ended 20 years ago, but the money didn't end. The money never ends. It just changes shape, becomes buildings, becomes power, becomes the city that you and I live in now. You sit with that for a moment, the weight of it, the knowledge that the ground you walk on, the air you breathe, the very streets you navigate every day, all of it has this history, this darkness, this blood. I didn't know, you say, which is stupid because everyone knows. But knowing and understanding are different things. Nobody knows, the old man says. Not really. That's how we live with it. We don't look too close. Don't ask too many questions. Don't think about what's buried under our feet. He struggles to his feet, his knees popping like damp firewood. I've taken enough of your Sunday, he says. You've got a life to get back to. A sister to take care of, if I heard right. You don't remember mentioning your sister, but old men hear things. Liverpool is a small city in some ways. Everyone's business is everyone's business. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a coin, presses it into your hand. It's a shilling. For the girl, he says, get her some decent medicine. Not that rubbish they sell in the market. You try to give it back. He refuses. Consider it an old man's penance, he says. 1 shilling out of a lifetime of wages earned the wrong way. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's something. And then he's gone, shuffling down the aisle, out the door, into the grey Liverpool morning. You sit there for a long time after, holding the shilling, looking at the memorial tablets, thinking about the children who died when the spire fell, thinking about the children who died on ships crossing the Atlantic, thinking about your sister coughing in a cellar that was probably built with slave money. The candles gutter and die. The church grows darker. Eventually someone comes to tell you they're closing up, and you have to leave. You step out into the street. The waterfront stretches before you, quiet on this Sunday afternoon. The ships at anchor, the warehouses locked, everything waiting for Monday when the machinery of commerce will start grinding again. You look at St. Nicholas, at the spire that fell and was rebuilt, at the church that has watched over this harbour for centuries, that has blessed ships going out and welcomed them home, that has christened children and buried them, that has heard confessions from sailors and merchants and dock workers and everyone else who has passed through this city. The bells begin to toll, not calling people to service this time, just marking the hour. The same sound you've heard every day of your life, but it sounds different now, heavier, like the bells are carrying something you didn't know about before. You pocket the shilling and start walking home. 3 shillings and 14 pence now, the old man's money plus what you had before, enough for medicine, enough for food, enough to survive a little longer. Your sister is going to ask where you got it. You're not sure what you'll tell her. The truth seems too heavy, too complicated. How do you explain that an old slave ship sailor gave you a shilling out of guilt that's been festering for 40 years? Maybe you'll just say you found it, or earned it somehow. A small lie to protect her from a bigger truth. That's what Liverpool does. What everyone in Liverpool does. Small lies to survive, big lies to sleep at night, and underneath it all the truth that nobody wants to look at. The blood in the stones, the ghosts in the harbour, the weight of history pressing down on everyone who lives here. You walk home through streets that suddenly seem different, older, darker, full of stories you never thought to ask about. The cellar is waiting. Your sister is waiting. Tomorrow is waiting. But for now, you just walk, one foot in front of the other, through a city that has revealed for just a moment what it's built on, and you wonder if you'll ever see it the same way again. The ships came back on Tuesday. You heard them before you saw them. The shouting from the docks carrying over the rooftops. Ships in. Ships in. Work today. You were out the door before your sister could say goodbye. Down the passage, through the court, into the streets. Running now, or something close to it. Your body protesting every step, but your mind focused on one thing only: work. The crowd at the dock gates was bigger than usual. All those men who'd been turned away for days, all those empty pockets and hungry bellies, all pressing forward at once. You fought your way toward the front, elbows and shoulders and muttered curses. Someone stepped on your foot. You stepped on someone else's. Nobody apologised. Nobody expected apologies. The stevedore climbed up on his crate. Same red face, same belly, same expression of a man choosing livestock. His finger swept across the crowd. You there. He pointed at you. 3 days of nothing, and now this. Work. Wages. Survival for another week. You didn't smile, didn't celebrate, just stepped forward and followed the others toward the ships. That was 12 hours ago. Now you're walking home with 4 shillings and 6pence in your pocket, same as before. Your arms are screaming. Your back is a solid mass of pain. The blister on your hand has reopened, and there's blood mixed with the dirt on your palm. But you're smiling anyway. Can't help it. Money means medicine. Medicine might help your sister. Might not, but might is better than nothing. The route home takes you through parts of Liverpool you don't usually see. You're too tired to take the direct path, the one that leads through the worst of the courts and alleys. So you're wandering, taking the longer way, the way that leads past actual buildings instead of just tenements stacked on top of each other. That's how you end up on this particular street. You're not even sure what street it is. somewhere north of the docks, somewhere that was probably countryside a few decades ago, before Liverpool swallowed it whole. The buildings here are different, newer, purpose-built as they say, not old houses carved up into a dozen cramped dwellings, and then you see it, a building with a windmill next to it. Now, windmills aren't unusual in Liverpool. There used to be dozens of them. 74 at the last count, or so someone told you once. Grinding grain for the city's bread, pumping water, doing all the work that wind could do before steam started taking over. But this windmill is right next to this building, and something about the building makes you stop. It's not grand. Not like the town hall or the merchants' houses, but it's clean, well kept. There's a sign above the door, though you're too far away to read it. And there are people coming and going, young people, children maybe, or not quite children, young men and women, moving with a strange kind of careful deliberation. You watch for a moment, trying to figure out what you're seeing. One of them bumps into a post. Not hard, just a gentle collision. He adjusts his path and keeps walking. No embarrassment, no surprise, like he expected it. And then you understand. They can't see. These are blind people. This is some kind of place for blind people. You've seen blind beggars on the streets, of course. Liverpool has plenty of them. Men and women sitting in doorways with cups out asking for pennies, some of them faking it probably, but some of them genuinely unable to see. Casualties of accidents or illness or just bad luck. But you've never seen anything like this. A building dedicated to them. A place where they seem to be doing something other than begging. Curiosity pulls you closer. The sign above the door comes into focus as you approach. School for the Indigent Blind. Indigent. You know that word. It means poor. Desperately poor. A school for poor blind people. You stand there like an idiot, staring at the building, trying to make sense of it. Schools cost money. Schools are for people who can afford to send their children to learn reading and writing and arithmetic. Not for blind beggars, not for people like the ones you see shuffling through Liverpool streets. Can I help you with something? A voice. You turn. A man is standing in the doorway of the building, middle-aged, well-dressed, but not extravagantly so. He has the look of someone who spends his days dealing with paperwork and his nights worrying about money. An administrator of some kind. A keeper of ledgers. Sorry, you say. I was just looking. The man studies you for a moment, taking in your dockworkers' clothes, your calloused hands, your general air of exhaustion and poverty. You're welcome to come inside, he says, if you're curious. We don't turn people away. You should say no. You should go home. Your sister is waiting. The medicine won't buy itself, but your feet are already carrying you toward the door. Inside, the building smells of wood shavings and something else, something you can't quite identify. The man leads you down a corridor past doors that open onto rooms full of people, young people, working at things. In one room, they're weaving baskets, their fingers moving with incredible speed and precision, threading strips of cane together into shapes. They can't see what they're doing. They're doing it by touch alone. In another room, they're making brushes, taking bristles and binding them to wooden handles, the same impossible dexterity, the same confidence. In a third room, there's music, a group of young people gathered around instruments, violins, a piano, someone singing. The sound is beautiful, genuinely beautiful. Not the rough music of street performers, something trained, practiced, refined. You stop in the doorway listening. The administrator stops beside you. That's what most people notice first, he says. The music, It's what we're known for, I suppose. How do they... You start, then stop. The question seems rude somehow. How do they learn? He finishes for you. The same way anyone learns. Practice. Repetition. Good teaching. Being blind doesn't make you stupid. It just means you learn differently. He gestures to you to follow him, and you continue down the corridor. This place was founded 30 years ago, he says, by a man named Edward Rushton. Have you heard of him? You shake your head. He was a poet. A good one, by all accounts. Published several volumes. But that's not what he's remembered for. What he's remembered for is this place. The administrator pushes open a door and leads you into a small courtyard. The windmill is visible from here, its sails turning slowly in the afternoon breeze. Rushton went blind himself, the administrator continues, when he was young, 19, 20. He was a sailor then, working on ships out of Liverpool. A sailor? Like the old man in the church. You wonder if they knew each other, if their paths ever crossed on those wooden decks. He was on a slave ship, the administrator says, carrying people from Africa to the Americas. There was an outbreak of disease on board. Something with the eyes. It spread through the cargo hold like wildfire. The cargo hold. You know what that means? The people in chains. The human beings being transported like cotton or sugar. Rushton tried to help them, the administrator says. Went down into the hold and tended to the sick. Tried to save as many as he could. And in the process he caught the disease himself. You look at the man, waiting. He lost his sight. Completely. 19 years old and blind for the rest of his life. Because he tried to help people that everyone else had written off as cargo. The wind picks up. The windmill's sails creak as they turn. After that, Rushton became an abolitionist. Spent decades fighting against the slave trade, writing poems, giving speeches, making himself unpopular with the merchants who ran this city. He was practically a pariah by the end. The administrator smiled slightly, but he also did this. He took his blindness and turned it into something. He realized that blind people didn't have to be beggars, didn't have to be helpless. They just needed someone to teach them, to give them skills they could use. So he started this school. You look back at the building, at the young people learning to weave baskets and make brushes and play music. They come here with nothing, the administrator says. Poor children, orphans, kids who would have spent their lives on the streets with cups in their hands, and they leave with trades, with skills, with ways to support themselves. What happens to them after, you ask? Some become musicians, professional musicians. There's a concert circuit for blind performers. Others become craftsmen. The baskets and brushes they make here, those get sold. The money helps fund the school. It's not charity, it's investment. He turns to face you directly. Rushton believed that everyone deserves dignity, even people the world has given up on, especially people the world has given up on. That's what this place is about. You stand there in the courtyard, the windmill turning overhead, thinking about everything you've just heard. A man who went blind trying to save enslaved people from disease. A man who took that blindness and built something. A place where hopeless cases learn to be something other than hopeless. It's not the Liverpool you know. Not the Liverpool of cellars and cholera and children dying before they turn 5. It's something else. Something that shouldn't exist in a city this brutal, but does. You think about your sister, about the cough that's getting worse, about what happens if she doesn't get better. You think about all the ways that people can be broken by disease, by poverty, by a spire falling on a Sunday morning. by a lifetime of hauling cargo for 4 shillings a day. And you think about the fact that sometimes, somehow, people find ways to build things in the middle of all that brokenness. Schools, churches, windmills grinding grain so that bread can be baked so that people can eat. It doesn't make the world less cruel, but it makes it something other than only cruel. I should go, you say. My sister is waiting. The administrator nods. Thank you for visiting. We're always glad when people take an interest. You turn to leave, then stop. The man who started this. Rushton. Is he still alive? The administrator's face shifts. Something sad in his eyes. He died. Years ago now. 1814. Never saw the end of the slave trade he fought so hard against. He pauses. Or rather, he did see it. In 1807, when the trade was abolished. He lived just long enough to know he'd won. Then he died a few years later. Worn out, probably. All those years of fighting, all those battles with the merchants and the politicians and everyone who wanted to keep the trade alive. You nod, not sure what to say. His school lives on, though. That's something. His name is mostly forgotten, but the work he started continues. Hundreds of young people have passed through these doors. Hundreds more will come. You walk out of the building and back into the Liverpool streets. The sky is grey as always. The coal smoke hangs in the air as always. The horse manure squelches under your boots as always. But something feels different. Lighter, maybe. Or heavier in a different way. You've spent your whole life in this city, walking these streets, working these docks, surviving day by day without ever really thinking about anything beyond the next meal, the next wage, the next breath. And now, in the space of a few days, you've learned things you never knew. About the spire that fell, about the ships that carried people in chains, about a blind poet who built a school because he believed that everyone deserves dignity. Liverpool is still Liverpool, cruel and beautiful, brutal and strange, built on blood and somehow, impossibly, still capable of producing things like that school, that music, those young people learning to weave baskets in the dark. You walk home through the gathering evening. The medicine cellar is still open when you pass her door. A wizened woman with jars full of things you can't identify. You stop and buy something for your sister. Not the cheap stuff. Something better. Something that might actually help. It costs more than you wanted to spend. But the old sailor's shilling is still in your pocket, and he said to use it for medicine. So you do. The cellar is dark when you get home. Your sister is awake, sitting up against the wall, wrapped in that ratty blanket. You brought medicine, she says. Her voice is thin, tired. I brought medicine. You give her the bottle. Watch her take a dose. Watch her face scrunch up at the taste. Where'd you get the money, she asks. Long story. She looks at you. Those sharp eyes that see too much, even in the darkness of this cellar. You're different, she says. Something happened. You think about the school, about Rushton, about a man who went blind saving people he didn't have to save and spent the rest of his life building something that mattered. I learned some things, you say, about this city, about what's underneath it. Your sister coughs, that wet rattling sound, but maybe slightly less wet than yesterday. Maybe the medicine is already helping, or maybe you're just hoping. Tell me, she says. I'm not going anywhere. So you do. You sit down next to her in the dark and you tell her about the sailor in the church, about the spire that fell, about the blind school and the windmill and a poet who lost his eyes trying to help enslaved people on a ship. She listens without interrupting. Your sister has always been a good listener. When you finish, she's quiet for a long time. Then she says, "That's the thing about Liverpool, isn't it? It's terrible. But it's not only terrible. Yeah, that's the thing. Outside, somewhere far away, a church bell tolls. You don't count the rings this time. It doesn't matter what hour it is. What matters is that you're here. Your sister is here. There's medicine in her system and money in your pocket, and tomorrow the ships will probably need unloading again. And somewhere across the city, blind children are learning to make music. You close your eyes and let the darkness take you. Sleep comes easier tonight. Thursday brought something different. Not dock work. The ships were being unloaded by other men, and the stevedore didn't pick you this time. Wrong place in the crowd, wrong angle, bad luck. But a merchant on the waterfront needed someone to carry a package across the city. Heavy thing, wrapped in oilcloth. He didn't say what was in it, and you didn't ask. 6pence for the delivery. Not as good as dock wages, but 6pence is 6pence. The address he gave you is on the other side of Liverpool, a part of the city you've never been to. The merchant scratched directions on a scrap of paper, and now you're walking with the package under your arm, trying to make sense of his handwriting. Bold Street. That's where you're supposed to go. Bold Street. Near the top of the hill. Liverpool is built on hills. You forget that sometimes, living down by the water. But now you're climbing, and your legs are reminding you that flat ground is a luxury. The streets are getting nicer as you go. Fewer piles of horse manure, fewer beggars in doorways, more glass in the windows, more paint on the doors. This is where the money lives. Not the old money, the aristocrats with their country estates, but the new money. The merchants and traders and ship owners who've built fortunes on cotton and sugar and everything else that flows through Liverpool's docks. You keep walking, past shops selling things you'll never afford, past coffee houses where men in clean coats sit reading newspapers, past a woman in a dress that probably cost more than you'll earn in a year. She doesn't look at you. None of them look at you. You're carrying a package, which makes you a servant, which makes you invisible. That's fine. Invisible is safe. And then you see it. The building on Bold Street. You stop walking. Just stand there on the pavement like an idiot staring up at it. It's not the biggest building you've ever seen. The town hall is bigger. Some of the warehouses on the waterfront are bigger. But there's something about this one. Something that makes you stop. Maybe it's the columns, tall and white and perfectly spaced. Or maybe it's the dome you can see rising behind them, catching the grey Liverpool light. Or maybe it's just the feeling of the place, the sense that something important happens here. A man brushes past you, well dressed, carrying a leather case under his arm. He climbs the steps to the front door and disappears inside. Another man follows, then another. You watch them go. These men with their clean hands and their leather cases and their easy confidence, walking into that building like they belong there. Excuse me? A voice. You turn. A boy, maybe 12 or 13, ragged clothes, sharp eyes. The kind of kid you see on every street corner in Liverpool running errands for pennies. That's the Lyceum, he says, noticing you staring. The what? The Lyceum. He pronounces it carefully, like he's practiced it. It's a library. For a gentleman. A library. The word sits strange in your mouth. You know what a library is, roughly. A place with books. But you've never seen one. Never had any reason to. Books are expensive. Books are for people who can afford to sit around reading instead of working. Books are for a different world entirely. But here it is, a whole building full of them. You watch another man climb the steps. This one is older, grey hair, expensive coat. He moves slowly, like a man with nowhere urgent to be, like a man whose time belongs to himself. Must be nice. What kind of library, you ask the boy? Stupid question. But the boy seems happy to answer. Maybe he's been practicing this speech too. The biggest in England. That's what they say. 10,000 books all lined up on the walls, and newspapers, every newspaper from London, from Ireland, from everywhere. The gentlemen pay money every year to use it. They go in there and read and drink coffee and talk about philosophy. Philosophy. Another word you know the shape of but not the substance. Can anyone go in? The boy laughs. Not mean. Just amused. You need a subscription. Costs more than you or me will ever see. It's for the merchants, the rich ones, the ones who want to pretend they're not just about money. He looks at the building with something that might be longing, or might be contempt. Hard to tell with kids like this. My father used to work there, he says, cleaning, before he died. He told me about it. The big round room with all the books, the dome up above with light coming through, the statues of famous writers, Shakespeare, Milton, some Greek fellow. Homer, you say? Surprising yourself. Yeah, that one. The boy scuffs his foot against the pavement, lost in memory for a moment. He said it was the quietest place in Liverpool. My father said you could hear yourself think in there. Men sitting at tables reading, not talking, not shouting, just reading, like the whole world outside didn't exist. He shakes himself out of it. A kid his age can't afford to get lost in memory for too long. Anyway, you looking for something? I can show you around for a penny. You shake your head. Got a delivery to make. The address on the paper is further up the street. You start walking again, but you look back once at the Lyceum, at the men in their clean coats walking up those steps, at the dome rising above the rooftops. 10,000 books. You can't read. Not really. You know your letters. Can puzzle out simple words if you try hard enough. But books, real books, those are for other people. People who had time to learn. People who didn't start working the moment they could walk. Your sister can read. Better than you, anyway. She learned somehow. Somewhere. Maybe at one of the charity schools before she started at the rope factory. She reads things out loud sometimes. Signs, notices. The occasional newspaper page that blows past in the street. 10,000 books. You try to imagine it. A room with walls made of books. Words stacked on words, stacked on words. Everything anyone ever thought. Written down and kept safe. What do they even read about? What could possibly fill 10,000 books? History, probably. Wars and kings and empires. Philosophy. Whatever that means exactly. Science, maybe. How things work. Why the stars move. What makes the wind blow. Things you'll never know. Things you don't have time to know. And those men walking in there every day to read them. To drink coffee and discuss philosophy beneath statues of dead poets. They probably don't even appreciate it. Probably take it for granted the way you take the docks for granted. Just another part of their world. It makes you angry somehow. Not at them exactly. Just at the gap. The distance between their world and yours. They're in there reading about ancient Greece, and you're out here carrying packages for sixpence because if you don't work, you don't eat. But the anger fades as quickly as it came. What's the point? This is how things are, how they've always been. Some people read books, some people carry them. You make the delivery. The man who receives the package barely looks at you, presses a sixpence into your palm and closes the door. You stand on the street, coin in hand, not quite ready to go home. The day is still young, or young enough, and you're on this side of the city where you've never been. Might as well see what else is here before you go back to the cellar and the smell and the sound of your sister coughing. You start walking, not toward home, away from it. The streets change as you go. The nice buildings give way to older ones. Then the buildings give way to fields, actual fields, with actual grass and actual trees. You almost forgot what trees looked like. This is the edge of Liverpool, where the city ends and the countryside begins, or where it used to end. You can see new construction everywhere, houses going up, roads being laid, the city reaching out with its dirty fingers, grabbing more land. But for now, in this moment, there's still a strip of green, a last gasp of something that isn't cobblestones and coal smoke, and windmills. You see them rising above the fields, 3 of them, maybe 4, their sails turning slow in the wind, grinding grain into flour, the same way windmills have been grinding grain for hundreds of years. Liverpool used to have dozens of these, 74, someone told you once, scattered all over the city and the land around it. Most of them are gone now, torn down to make room for buildings, replaced by steam mills that work faster and don't depend on the weather. But these ones are still here, still turning, still doing the work they were built to do. There's something comforting about that. In a city that changes so fast, so constantly, that tears down buildings and puts up new ones and never seems to stop moving, these windmills have just been sitting here, turning, grinding, making flour so that people can eat bread. Your grandmother probably saw windmills like these, your grandfather, all the way back to whoever first built them centuries ago. The same motion, the same purpose, the same slow, patient work. You walk closer. There's a road here, unpaved, rutted with cart tracks. London Road, a signpost says, leading out of the city toward wherever London Road leads. Other towns, other cities, places you've never been and probably never will go. A few cottages dot the landscape. Smoke rising from chimneys, a cow grazing in a field. It looks peaceful, almost pretty. The kind of scene you might see in a painting if you ever saw paintings. But there's something else here too. You notice it as you get closer to the windmills. A structure standing alone in a field, wooden posts, a crossbeam, and something hanging from it. Not something, someone, a body, swinging slightly in the wind. You stop walking. Your stomach turns over. The gallows. You've heard of this place. Gallows Mills, they call it. Named for the obvious reason. This is where Liverpool hangs its criminals, where justice, such as it is, gets carried out in full view of anyone who happens to be passing by. The body on the gallows is too far away to see clearly, which is fine. You don't want to see it clearly. It's a man, probably. Someone who stole something or killed someone or did something else that the courts decided deserved death. They leave them up there for days sometimes, pour encourager les autres, as the French say, to encourage the others, a warning to anyone thinking about breaking the law. You've seen hangings before. Everyone in Liverpool has. They're public events. People bring their children. Vendors sell food. It's entertainment for people who can't afford the theatre. The last one you saw was 6 months ago. A man who'd killed his wife. The crowd was huge. Thousands of people pushing and shoving for a better view. When the trap dropped, there was a cheer, like watching a horse race or a cockfight. You didn't cheer. You just stood there, watching a man die, and felt nothing much at all. That's what scared you most. Not the death itself, the numbness, but seeing it from a distance like this, alone in a field, the windmills turning peacefully behind it. That's different somehow. Quieter, more real. You think about the people who live in those cottages, the ones with the smoke rising from their chimneys. Do they see the gallows every day? Do they hear the crowds when an execution happens? Do they smell whatever there is to smell when a body hangs too long in the sun? You think about the men who were hanged here over the years, thieves and murderers and traitors, 4 Scottish rebels in 1715 you remember hearing once, men who fought for the wrong king and paid the price. Did they see the windmills turning as they walked to the scaffold? Did they watch the sails go round and round while they waited for the noose? Did they think about bread baking, flour milling, all the ordinary machinery of life continuing while theirs was about to end? The wind picks up. The windmill sails creak and groan. The body on the gallows sways. You turn and walk back toward the city. The fields give way to houses. The houses give way to streets. The streets get dirtier, more crowded, more familiar. By the time you reach the waterfront, it's getting dark. The ships are silhouettes against the grey sky. The warehouses are shadows. The smell of salt and sewage wraps around you like a blanket. Home. Your sister is awake when you get there, sitting up, the bottle of medicine in her hand. You're late, she says. Got work, delivery job. You show her the 6pence. She nods. Doesn't smile exactly, but something in her face relaxes. Money means survival. Survival means another day. I went to the edge of the city, you tell her. There's still fields out there, windmills, cows grazing, like the countryside. You don't mention the gallows. She doesn't need to know about that. Windmills, she says. Her voice is still rough but less rattling than before. The medicine might actually be working. I remember windmills from when I was little, before we moved here. You didn't know that. Didn't know she remembered anything from before Liverpool. She was so young when your family came here. 3 or 4, just a baby really. Where were we, you ask? Somewhere north. She shrugs. I don't remember the name. Just the windmill. It was near our house. I used to watch it through the window, the sails going round and round. She coughs, but it's a small cough. A normal cough, not the wet, terrible sound from before. There's a library in the city, you tell her. Big one. 10,000 books. Her eyes sharpen. Where? Bold Street. Up on the hill. It's for rich people. Merchants. You have to pay to get in. She's quiet for a moment, thinking. Something working behind her eyes. 10,000 books, she says. Can you imagine? All those words, all those ideas, just sitting there, waiting for someone to read them. No, I can't. I could read some of them, she says, if they let me in, if it was free. I could read. I know, she laughs. That thin, tired sound that passes for laughter when you're too worn out for the real thing. Maybe someday, she says, when we're rich. Sure, when we're rich. You both know that's never going to happen. But it's nice to pretend. Nice to imagine a world where you could walk up those steps and through those doors and sit beneath that dome reading books about philosophy and ancient Greece. Nice to imagine a world where your sister could read all 10,000 books if she wanted to. Where the only thing stopping her was time, not money. The church bells toll somewhere in the distance. 9 o'clock. Time for sleep. Your sister hands you the medicine bottle. Still some left. Enough for another few days, maybe. Getting better, she says. I think. Good. That's good. You settle onto the cold floor. Your sister curls up on the straw. The single candle gutters and dies, and the darkness swallows everything. But before you fall asleep, you think about the things you saw today. The Lyceum, with its dome and its columns and its 10,000 books. The gallows with its body swinging in the wind. The windmills still turning after all these years. Liverpool is full of contrast like that. Beauty and horror, side by side. Knowledge and ignorance. Life and death. It's all mixed up together, impossible to separate. You close your eyes. The windmill sails keep turning in your mind. Round and round, grinding grain into flour, flour into bread, bread into life. Maybe that's all there is. The grinding, the turning, the work that never ends. But at least there's still windmills. At least there's still fields at the edge of the city. At least there's still a sliver of green before the cobblestones take over completely. At least there's that. Your breathing slows, your muscles unclench. Sleep pulls you down, down, down into the dark, and outside, somewhere in the distance, the wind keeps blowing. The sails keep turning. The city keeps growing, and the gallows keeps waiting for the next man who steps out of line. The fever came to the court on a Wednesday. You didn't know it at first. Just noticed that the woman with the baby wasn't at the pump that morning. Noticed the baby wasn't crying, which was strange because that baby cried constantly, day and night. A thin, reedy wail that wormed its way through the walls and into your dreams. Silence from that corner of the court was wrong somehow, like a clock that stopped ticking. By Thursday you knew why. The woman's husband came up from their cellar with a face the colour of old cheese, said she was burning up, said she couldn't keep anything down, said the baby wouldn't stop crying now, wouldn't stop no matter what he did, but the crying sounded different, weaker, fever. The word spread through the court like smoke. By noon, everyone knew. By evening, everyone was afraid. Fever in Liverpool isn't just sickness. It's a death sentence that takes its time. It spreads through families like fire through dry wood. One person gets it, then another, until whole households are wiped out. Whole courts, whole streets. They have names for it. Typhus, cholera, consumption. The doctors argue about which is which and what causes what. But it doesn't really matter when you're the one burning up in a cellar while your family watches helplessly. Liverpool is the unhealthiest town in England. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. The doctors have proved it with their charts and their numbers and their endless reports to Parliament. The average working person here dies at 17. 17. In the countryside, people live into their 30s. In London, they make it to 25 or so. But Liverpool kills you young. Part of it is the work, the docks, the factories, the rope works and sugar refineries. Hard labour that wears your body down before you're even properly grown. Part of it is the food, or the lack of it. You can't fight off sickness when your stomach is empty half the time. But mostly it's this. The courts, the cellars. 40 people sharing one privy. No drainage, no ventilation, no way for the filth to go anywhere except down, down, down into the ground, where it seeps through the stones and into the places where people live. The doctors know this. Some of them anyway. There's a man named Duncan who's been making noise about it, writing reports, giving speeches, trying to get the city to do something about the cesspits and the sewers and the thousands of people living in holes that should have been condemned years ago. Nobody listens, or they listen and don't care. The merchants don't want to pay for improvements, the landlords don't want to lose their rental income, and the poor don't have any power to make anyone do anything, so the fever keeps coming, wave after wave, and people keep dying. Some people say it's the bad air, the miasma they call it. The foul smells rising up from the sewage and the rotting garbage and the horse manure in the streets. Breathe it in and it gets inside you, corrupts your humours, makes you sick. Other people say it's the Irish. That's the popular theory anyway. The Irish brought it. The Irish carry it. The Irish are a plague themselves, swarming off the boats from Dublin and Cork, bringing their diseases with them like extra luggage. You've heard this talk in the pubs, in the market, on the docks. Even some of the other dock workers, men who have nothing themselves, look at the Irish with suspicion, like they're less than human, like they deserve what they're getting. It's not true. You know it's not true. The Irish aren't inherently more diseased than anyone else. They just live in worse conditions, packed tighter, eat less, work harder for less pay. Of course they get sick more often. Anyone would. But fear needs a target, and the Irish are easy targets. By Friday, the woman with the baby is dead. Her husband carries her body up from the cellar wrapped in a sheet that was probably white once. Now it's grey with use, and spotted with stains you don't want to think about. He can barely walk, stumbling, weeping. The baby tucked under one arm, silent now, which is somehow worse than the crying. A cart comes to take the body away. You don't know where. To the church, maybe. To whatever potter's field they use for the poor. The burial grounds in this city are so full that sometimes the bodies don't stay buried. Sometimes they rise up during heavy rain, floating to the surface like they're trying to escape. You didn't know the woman's name. She never told you. In the 2 weeks she lived in your cellar, she barely spoke at all. Just sat there with her baby, staring at the walls, waiting for something that never came. Now she's gone, and her husband is alone with an infant he can't feed. He leaves the court that same day, takes the baby and disappears into the maze of Liverpool streets. You don't know where he's going. You don't ask. Maybe he has family somewhere. Maybe he's heading to the workhouse. Maybe he's just walking until he can't walk anymore. It doesn't matter. What matters is that there's an empty space in the cellar now. Empty spaces fill quickly in Liverpool. Your sister watches all of this from her corner. She's better than she was. The good medicine you bought is doing something. Her cough is still there, but it's lighter now. Less blood. More air. She can sit up without getting dizzy. Can eat without throwing everything back up. She's not cured. You're not stupid enough to think that. Consumption doesn't cure. It just waits. But she's stronger than she was a week ago, and that's something. We should leave, she says, after the body is gone, after the husband has vanished with his silent baby. We should find somewhere else. And go where? She doesn't have an answer for that. Neither do you. Somewhere else means another court, another cellar, another set of strangers packed together underground. The fever is everywhere in Liverpool. Moving won't save you. It'll just give you new neighbours to watch die. So you stay. The days pass. The fever doesn't spread. Or at least it doesn't spread here. In the court, things go back to what passes for normal. The pump keeps pumping. The privy keeps stinking. Life goes on because what else is it going to do? But there's a change, a tension. You can feel it in the way people move around each other, the way they hold their breath when they pass someone new, the way mothers pull their children close and hurry indoors at the first sign of a cough. Nobody trusts anyone, not really. Your neighbour today could be your death sentence tomorrow. Every sneeze is suspicious. Every fever is the start of the end. George, the old man who shares your cellar, starts burning herbs in a tin cup every evening. Says it clears the bad air, purifies the miasma, You don't know if it works, but the smell is sharp and bitter, and it covers up the other smells, at least for a while. The woman who runs the court starts checking on the cellars every morning, making sure nobody's died in the night, making sure nobody's hiding symptoms that could spread to everyone else. She's not cruel about it, just practical. If someone gets sick, they need to be out. That's the rule. Protect the many by sacrificing the few. You keep your sister hidden as much as you can. Her cough is better, but it's still there, still noticeable. If anyone thinks she might be contagious, you could both be thrown out, onto the streets, into the workhouse, into God knows where. But you hear things, stories filtering in from other parts of the city, other courts, other cellars. There's an outbreak in the Irish Quarter. That's what people are saying. Started near the docks, spread through the lodging houses, people dropping like flies, 10 dead, 20, more every day. The doctors are overwhelmed, or maybe they just don't care. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. A doctor will race across town to treat a merchant's headache but won't set foot in a cellar to help a dying child. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. You go to the docks every morning hoping for work. Sometimes there's work, sometimes there isn't. The ships are coming in more regularly now, which is good for your wages but bad for other reasons. Ships from Ireland, mostly. Packed with people fleeing the famine that's still ravaging that country. The famine. You've heard about it. Everyone has. Something wrong with the potatoes. They're rotting in the ground. The crop that fed half of Ireland is dying, and the people are dying with it. 1 million dead already, some say. Maybe more. Nobody really knows. The numbers are too big to comprehend. Too awful to think about for very long. And now the survivors are pouring into Liverpool. 300,000 of them passed through last year alone, according to the papers. 300,000 hollow-eyed, starving, desperate people, all of them looking for something better than what they left behind. Most of them move on eventually, to America, to Australia, anywhere but here. But tens of thousands stay, because they have nowhere else to go, because they've run out of money, because Liverpool, for all its horrors, is still better than starving in a ditch in County Cork. You see them on the quays, the new arrivals, thin as skeletons, some of them, hollow-eyed, hollow-cheeked. They stumble off the boats like sleepwalkers and stand there blinking at Liverpool like they can't quite believe any of this is real. The ships themselves are nightmares. Coffin ships, people call them. Passengers packed in so tight they can barely move. Disease spreading through the holds like wildfire. Sometimes 1/3 of them die before they even reach land. The bodies get dumped overboard, fed to the fish. No burial, no grave, just gone. The ones who survive aren't much better off, weakened by the voyage, carrying whatever sickness they caught in those crowded holds. They step onto the docks and immediately become Liverpool's problem. Some of them have money, enough to buy passage to America or Australia. Liverpool is just a stopping point for them, a place to change ships, a few days on solid ground before the next leg of their journey. But most of them have nothing, spent everything they had just getting here. Now they're stuck. No money to go further, no way to get home. Just Liverpool, with its cellars and its fever and its population that doesn't particularly want them. You watch a family struggle down the gangplank one morning. A man, a woman, 3 children. The oldest child is maybe 8. The youngest is being carried because she's too weak to walk. They have a bundle of possessions wrapped in cloth. That's it. Everything they own in the world tied up in a dirty sheet. The man asks a dock worker where they can find lodging. His accent is thick, Irish. The dock worker points vaguely inland and walks away. You want to help? You want to walk over and tell them which streets to avoid, which landlords will cheat them, which courts have room, and which are so full that people are sleeping on top of each other. But you don't. You have your own problems, your own sister to worry about, your own survival to focus on. Besides, what would you tell them? The truth? That they've traded one nightmare for another? That the streets here might be paved, but they're paved with horse manure and desperation? That the cellars are waiting for them, dark and damp and full of disease? The truth won't help. Nothing will help. They'll figure it out soon enough. You turn away and go back to hauling cotton. The work is hard, but it's honest. Your body knows what to do even when your mind is somewhere else. Lift, carry, set down, return. The rhythm of survival. A week passes, then another. The fever in the Irish quarter burns itself out eventually. Or maybe it just moves on to somewhere else. These things come in waves. They crash over the city, kill whoever they're going to kill, and recede. Until the next wave. 5,000 dead this year, someone says on the docks. That's what they're claiming. 5,000 people killed by one fever or another. 6,000, says someone else. More, says a third. The numbers keep climbing depending on who you ask. You don't know if any of it is true. The numbers are probably made up. Or maybe they're real but incomplete. Who counts the poor? Who tracks what happens in the cellars? When a dock worker dies of typhus, does anyone write it down? When a child wastes away in a lodging house, does anyone notice? The rich are counted, the merchants, the ship owners. When one of them dies, there's a funeral procession through the streets. Black horses with plumes, mourners in their finest clothes, a monument in the churchyard. When one of us dies, there's a cart and a potter's field and a hole in the ground that fills up with rain. Your sister keeps improving, slowly, day by day. She can walk to the pump now without getting winded, can climb the stairs from the cellar without stopping to rest. The colour is coming back to her cheeks, a little bit, enough to notice. She's still thin, still coughing, still fragile in a way that makes you want to wrap her in blankets and never let her go outside. But she's alive, she's fighting. That's more than a lot of people can say. The medicine you bought her is running low. You'll need to get more soon, which means more money, which means more work, which means more hours hauling cotton in ship holds while your body screams at you to stop. But you'll do it. Of course you'll do it. What's the alternative? One evening after work you take her for a walk. Not far, just around the court, up the passage and out onto the street, a few blocks toward the waterfront where the air is slightly less poisonous. The sun is setting over the river, orange and pink streaked across a grey sky. Beautiful if you ignore everything else. She holds your arm as you walk, partly for support, partly just to hold on. The city is quieter at this hour. The day workers have gone home. The night workers haven't come out yet. There's a lull, a pause, like Liverpool is taking a breath before starting all over again. I've been thinking, she says. That's dangerous, you say. She punches your arm weakly. I'm serious. I've been thinking about what happens next. Next? After I'm better. Really better. What do we do then? You don't have an answer. You've been so focused on getting through each day that you haven't thought about what comes after. What's the point of planning for a future that might not come? But she's looking at you with those eyes, those serious, too old eyes, waiting for you to say something. I don't know, you admit. Keep working, keep surviving. Same as always. That's not enough. What else is there? She stops walking. You stop too. The river is visible from here, just barely, through a gap between two warehouses. The water is grey and choppy. A ship is moving slowly toward the docks, its sails catching the last of the evening light. There has to be more, she says. More than cellars. More than the docks. More than just surviving until we can't survive anymore. Like what? I don't know. She sounds frustrated. Frustrated with you, with herself, with the whole situation. But I want to find out. I want to try. You think about the Lyceum, that grand building with its dome and its columns and its 10,000 books. You think about the blind school, where Edward Rushton taught children to make something of themselves. You think about the old sailor in the church, who worked the slave ships and spent the rest of his life trying to make amends. People do find more, some of them, the ones who are lucky, the ones who are stubborn, the ones who refuse to accept that this is all there is. Maybe she could be one of them. Maybe you could help her get there. Okay, you say, when you're better, really better, we'll figure something out. I don't know what, but something. She smiles, a small smile, but real. Promise? Promise. You stand there for another minute watching the ship come in. Then you turn and walk back toward the court, back toward the cellar, back toward the life you're stuck in, at least for now. But something feels different, lighter, maybe. Like the future isn't just a dark wall you're walking toward. Like there might be something on the other side. The fever is still out there. The disease, the death, the endless grinding poverty that chews people up and spits them out. Liverpool is still Liverpool, but your sister is getting better, and she's making plans. And for the first time in a long time, you let yourself think about tomorrow as something other than just more of today. That night, in the cellar, you fall asleep to the sound of her breathing, still a little rattling, still a little wet, but steady, strong, the sound of someone who's decided not to give up. Maybe that's enough, for now. Maybe that's everything. A week passes. Your sister goes back to the rope factory. Not full days yet. Half shifts. 4 hours of twisting hemp until her hands are raw and her lungs start to protest. But she comes home walking instead of staggering. Eats her dinner without having to be forced. Sleeps through the night without coughing herself awake. She's getting better. Really better. And you've started to believe it might last. The fever passed through the court like a storm. The woman with the baby. 2 families from the cellars on the east side. An old man who'd been coughing for months anyway. The bodies went out on carts and new people moved in before the old ones were even cold in the ground. That's how it works. Liverpool doesn't pause for death. Liverpool just keeps churning forward, grinding up the weak and spitting out the remains. But your sister made it. You both made it. And somehow, that feels like a victory. Work has been steady. Not good exactly, but steady. 3 days this week at the docks. Another day helping unload a warehouse near the Clarence dock. Your muscles have stopped screaming and settled into a dull, permanent ache that you barely notice anymore. Your hands are calloused where the cotton hook rubs against them. Your back only hurts when you think about it. Today is different, though. The foreman at the dock gate pulls you aside after the morning selection. He's got a job that doesn't involve the ships. A delivery run across town. Cargo coming in on the railway that needs to get to a warehouse near the waterfront. Easy work, he says. Just loading and unloading. But there's good money in it because the railway people pay better than the shipping companies. Railway. The word sits in your head like something you can't quite get a grip on. You've heard about it, of course. Everyone in Liverpool has heard about it. The Liverpool and Manchester Railway, the world's first passenger line, steam locomotives that can move faster than any horse, pulling carriages full of people and goods between the two cities in less than 2 hours. Something that used to take most of a day by coach now takes 90 minutes. People talk about it like it's magic or witchcraft. Some of the older dock workers refuse to go near it, say it's unnatural, say nothing good can come from machines that move without horses or sails or human muscle, say the smoke and the noise will poison the air even worse than the factories already have. But the railway keeps running anyway, every day, carrying hundreds of passengers, thousands of tons of goods, making money for the men who built it and changing Liverpool in ways that nobody fully understands yet. You've never seen it, not up close. The station is on Lime Street on the edge of the city centre, and you've never had any reason to go that way. The docks are your world, the waterfront, the courts and cellars where people like you live. Lime Street might as well be on the moon. Until today. The foreman gives you directions and tells you to meet the other workers outside the station entrance. You start walking. The streets change as you move away from the waterfront. Fewer carts hauling cargo. Fewer men with the look of dock workers about them. More shops. More respectable-looking buildings. More people in clothes that don't have patches and holes. You feel out of place. Conspicuous, like everyone can see exactly what you are and where you come from just by looking at you. But nobody pays you any attention. The city is too busy for that. Too many people going in too many directions to care about one more shabby young man walking where he doesn't belong. And then you hear it. A sound like nothing you've ever heard before. A deep rhythmic chuffing that seems to come from the earth itself. A hissing of steam, a screech of metal on metal that makes your teeth ache. You round a corner and there it is, Lime Street Station. The building is huge, neoclassical, the sort of architecture you've seen on the town hall and the grand buildings where the merchants do their business. Columns and pediments and all the trappings of wealth and power. But it's what's behind the building that stops you dead in your tracks. The locomotive. You've never seen anything like it. A massive iron beast, black and gleaming, with a smokestack pouring out a column of steam and smoke that rises straight up into the grey Liverpool sky. It's sitting on tracks made of iron. 2 parallel lines that stretch away from the platform and disappear into a tunnel carved right through the rock of the hillside. The Wapping Tunnel, someone told you once. The first tunnel, built under an entire city, runs all the way from here to the docks. They dug it out with picks and shovels, men working underground for years, so that trains could move goods from the ships to the factories without having to fight through the chaos of the streets. The locomotive hisses again. Steam erupts from somewhere in its guts. The whole machine seems to breathe, like it's alive, like it's waiting. There are people everywhere. Workers in rough clothes like yours, passengers in fine coats and top hats, women in dresses that probably cost more than you'll earn in a year, children pointing and shouting and tugging at their parents' hands. Everyone staring at the locomotive with the same mixture of wonder and fear that you're feeling right now. This is the future, you realise. You're looking at the future. Not the docks, not the sailing ships with their masts and their rigging and their dependence on the wind. Not the horses pulling carts through streets ankle deep in their own manure. This, steam and iron. Machines that move on their own, speed that no living thing can match. The men who built this railway, they say, held a competition a few years back. The Rainhill Trials. Different inventors brought their locomotives to prove which one was the best. The winner was something called the Rocket, built by a man named Stevenson. It could move at 36 miles per hour. 36. You can barely imagine moving that fast. Most people never will, their whole lives. But this machine did it, and now machines like it are doing it every day. Someone bumps into you from behind. You've been standing in the middle of the walkway like an idiot, mouth open, staring at the locomotive like a country bumpkin who's never seen a city before. "Move along," the man says. "Some of us have trains to catch." You step aside. The man pushes past you. He's wearing a suit that probably costs more than everything you own combined. Doesn't even glance at you. To him, you're nothing, just another obstacle in his way. But you're not thinking about him. You're thinking about your sister. This is what she was talking about. That night on the waterfront when she said there had to be more than cellars and docks and just surviving until you couldn't survive anymore. She didn't know what she meant then. Neither did you. But maybe this is part of it. This railway. This new world that's been built out of steam and iron. The world is changing. You can feel it, see it, hear it in the chuff, chuff, chuff of the locomotive, and the hiss of the steam and the screech of the wheels on the iron tracks. Liverpool is changing too. Has been for years, really, but the railway makes it obvious in a way that nothing else has. The old ways are dying. The windmills that used to dot the edges of the city are disappearing one by one, replaced by factories powered by steam. The sailing ships that made Liverpool rich are giving way to steamships that don't need wind or favourable currents. Even the docks themselves are being rebuilt, expanded, modernised to handle the new kinds of cargo that the railway brings in. Everything is changing, and you're standing here watching it happen. A whistle blows, shrill and piercing. The locomotive shudders, groans, begins to move, slowly at first, so slowly that you could walk faster, but it picks up speed. The wheels turn, the smokestack belches, the carriages behind it start rolling forward, one after another, a chain of motion that seems almost impossible. All that weight, all those people, all that cargo, moving without horses, moving without sails, moving through nothing but fire and water and iron. You watch until the train disappears into the tunnel, until the last carriage is swallowed by the darkness, and the sound fades to a distant rumble. Then someone is shouting your name, not your actual name. Just, "Hey you, the dock lad over here." The other workers are gathered near a loading platform waiting for the next train to arrive, the one carrying the cargo you're supposed to move. You walk over to join them. Your body knows how to do this. Lift and carry. Lift and carry. But your mind is somewhere else. Somewhere on those iron tracks, racing toward Manchester at speeds that seem like something out of a dream. The work is easier than you expected. Railway cargo is packed differently than ship cargo. Standardized crates and barrels, designed to fit into the railway carriages efficiently. Less wrestling with awkward shapes, less climbing up and down ladders, just a steady rhythm of loading and unloading back and forth until the warehouse is full and the train is empty. You earn 3 shillings, more than a full day at the docks, and the foreman says there might be more work like this in the future. The railway's expanding, more lines being built, more cargo being moved, more need for workers who know how to handle goods quickly and efficiently. Some of the other dock workers are suspicious of the railway, afraid it's going to take their jobs, and maybe it will, eventually. Maybe the day is coming when ships won't be the main way goods move around this country, when the docks will shrink and the railways will grow and men like you will have to find new ways to survive. But for now, there's work. More work, actually, not less. The railway brings goods into Liverpool faster than ever before. Those goods still need to be loaded onto ships. The ships still need to be unloaded when they arrive from America and the Caribbean and everywhere else. The whole system is getting bigger, getting faster, getting more complicated. And maybe, in all that complexity, there's a place for people who are willing to learn new things. You think about your sister again, her dreams of something more, her frustration with the life you've both been stuck in. She can read, really read, not just pick out a few words here and there. She learned in the charity school before their parents died, before she had to start working at the rope factory to help keep you both alive. Maybe there's a future in that. Not at the docks, not in the cellars. Something else. Something that uses her mind instead of just her hands. The world is changing. That's the thing that keeps echoing in your head as you walk back toward the waterfront. The world is changing, and the people who change with it might have a chance to escape the lives they were born into. Or maybe not. Maybe that's just a story you're telling yourself to make the walking easier. Maybe the rich will stay rich, and the poor will stay poor, and the railway will just be another way for the people on top to make money off the people on the bottom. But still, you saw it. The locomotive, the station, the crowds of people moving between Liverpool and Manchester in 90 minutes instead of 4 hours. You saw the future arriving on iron wheels, and it didn't look like death. It looked like possibility. The sun is setting by the time you reach the court, orange and pink light filtering through the smoke haze, the familiar stink of the privy and the coal fires and the too many bodies packed into too small a space. Your sister is already home, sitting on the steps outside the cellar entrance, waiting for you. "You got work," she says. Not a question. She can always tell. Railway job, loading cargo at Lime Street. Her eyes widen. She's heard about the railway. Everyone has. But like you, she's never seen it. What's it like? You try to think of how to describe it. The locomotive, the steam, the sound, the way it felt to watch something that massive move on its own power. Loud, you say finally, and fast, and strange, like nothing I've ever seen before. She's quiet for a moment, processing. Do you think it'll change things? For people like us? You don't know. You honestly don't know. The world has been unfair for as long as anyone can remember. Why would a new machine change that? But then you think about the foreman's words. More work in the future. The railway's expanding. And you think about the people you saw at the station. Not just the rich passengers in their fine clothes, but the workers too. Railway workers. A new kind of job that didn't exist a generation ago. Maybe, you say. Maybe it could. She nods slowly, chewing on the idea the way she chews on everything. Carefully. Thoughtfully. "I want to see it," she says. "When I'm stronger. Will you take me?" You think about the walk across town, the streets that felt like foreign territory, the crowds of people who looked right through you like you weren't even there. "Yeah," you say. "I'll take you." She smiles, that same small, real smile from the other night on the waterfront. Good. You sit down beside her on the steps. The stone is cold. The air smells like always, smoke and sewage and the particular sourness of poverty. But the sky is still that orange-pink colour, and the light is soft, and your sister is sitting next to you, breathing steady and strong. The future is coming, one iron wheel at a time, and maybe, just maybe, there'll be room in it for people like you. In the cellar below, George is already snoring. The new family that moved in after the fever is settling down for the night. Somewhere out in the court a baby is crying, not the desperate wail of the sick baby that died last week. Just the ordinary complaint of a healthy child who doesn't want to go to sleep. You stay on the steps for a few more minutes, watching the light fade, feeling the day's work settling into your bones. Then you help your sister down the stairs and into the cellar. Tomorrow there might be more railway work. Tomorrow you might earn enough to put something aside. Tomorrow your sister might be strong enough to work a full shift. Tomorrow the fever might come back, or the work might dry up, or any of 100 other disasters might strike. But tonight, right now, there's a roof over your head, and food in your stomach, and a sister who's getting better day by day. That's not nothing. In Liverpool, in 1830-something, that's actually quite a lot. The darkness swallows you, the cellar walls close in, and somewhere in the distance, if you strain your ears, you can almost hear it. The whistle of a train, heading into the night. A month passes, then another. The seasons turn. Summer fades into autumn. The leaves on the few scraggly trees near the waterfront change colour and fall. The endless Liverpool rain gets colder, turning from uncomfortable to bitter. The coal smoke gets thicker as everyone burns more to keep warm, hanging in the streets like fog that never quite lifts. The days get shorter. The mornings start in darkness. The evenings come early, creeping in around 4 or 5 o'clock until it feels like night is the natural state of things, and daylight is just a brief interruption. The rhythm of life in the court settles into something that almost feels like routine. Work when there's work, rest when there isn't, eat when you can, sleep when your body won't stay awake anymore. Your sister is well now, not just better, well, truly well. She works full shifts at the rope factory, comes home tired but not exhausted, eats her dinner with appetite instead of forcing it down, sleeps through the night without coughing. The colour has come back to her cheeks and the light has come back to her eyes, and when she laughs, which she does sometimes now, it doesn't end in a fit of wheezing. She's alive, you're both alive, and in Liverpool that's no small thing. You kept your promise about the railway, took her to Lime Street on a Sunday afternoon when neither of you had to work, watched her face as she saw the locomotive for the first time, watched her eyes go wide and her mouth fall open, and her whole body lean forward like she was trying to absorb it through her skin. She didn't say much, just stood there, watching, thinking, processing. On the walk home, she told you she wanted to learn more, about machines, about how things work, about the new world that's being built out of steam and iron. She doesn't know how yet, doesn't know where to start, but she knows she wants something different from the rope factory, something that uses her mind. You told her you'd help however you could. It's not much. You don't have money or connections or any real power in this city, but you can work extra shifts. Put aside a few pennies here and there. Maybe someday it'll add up to something. Maybe someday she'll find a way out. Or maybe not. Maybe the world will keep grinding forward and leave you both behind like it leaves everyone behind who doesn't have the luck or the money or the right family name. But at least you're trying. At least you haven't given up. And in this city, in this time, that's something. That's actually quite a lot. The fever took so many others. The woman with the baby. The families from the east side of the court. Old men who'd been hanging on by a thread anyway. You watched the carts come and go, carrying bodies wrapped in sheets that used to be white. You watched new families move in before the old ones were even cold in the ground. But your sister made it. You both made it. And sometimes, late at night, When everything is quiet and the world feels very small, you let yourself feel grateful for that. Let yourself acknowledge how close it came, how easily it could have gone the other way. Tonight is quiet. The court is settling down for the evening. The sounds of the day are fading. The carts have stopped rumbling through the streets. The vendors have packed up their wares. The church bells have rung their last and won't ring again until morning. You're sitting on the steps outside the cellar. Same steps where you've sat 100 times before. Same cold stone beneath you. Same view of the courtyard with its single pump and its overflowing privy and its huddle of buildings pressing in from all sides. But something feels different tonight. Softer, maybe. The air is cool but not cutting. There's no wind for once. The smoke from the chimneys rises straight up instead of swirling into your eyes and lungs. The sky above the rooftops is fading from grey to purple to the deep blue of early evening. The colours blend together at the edges, soft and blurred like a watercolour painting you saw once in a shop window. You couldn't afford to buy it. Couldn't even afford to stand there looking at it for long. But you remember the colours, the way they seem to flow into each other without any hard lines. That's what the sky looks like now. A few stars are starting to appear. You can barely see them through the smoke haze, but they're there. Distant pinpricks of light that have been shining for thousands of years and will keep shining long after Liverpool and everyone in it is gone. The same stars that sailors navigate by. The same stars that hang over every city and every village and every lonely stretch of empty countryside on the entire planet. You've never thought much about stars before. Never had the time or the energy to think about anything beyond the next meal, the next day's work, the next crisis that needed handling. But tonight, for some reason, they catch your attention, make you feel small in a way that isn't entirely bad. Your sister is inside, already asleep probably. She went down early tonight, said she was tired in a good way. The kind of tired that comes from honest work and enough food and a body that's finally doing what it's supposed to do. George is down there too, still paying his 2p a night, still breathing that rattling breath that never seems to get better or worse. Just constant, just there. The background noise of your life. The new family is settled in, a husband and wife and 3 children. The oldest may be 7. They came from somewhere in Wales. Don't speak much English yet. Keep to themselves. But the children have started playing with the other children in the court, and the wife has started nodding at you when you pass each other at the pump. That's how it works. People come and people go. Some of them die and some of them move on, and some of them just disappear one day without explanation. But the court stays. The cellar stays. Life goes on. You think about everything you've seen in the past few months. The docks, the ships, the cotton bales that weigh as much as a man and have to be moved by hand, one after another, until your arms feel like they're going to fall off. The hiring foremen who look at you like livestock and decide with a pointed finger whether you eat today or starve. The town hall, that grand building with its dome and its columns, and its statue of Minerva looking down at the city like she owns it, which, in a way, she does. Commerce and war and wisdom. The 3 things Liverpool was built on. The 3 things that made it rich and powerful and cruel. The market. The chaos of bodies and voices and smells. The fish sellers and the meat sellers and the vegetable sellers all shouting over each other. The pickpockets working the crowd. The wealthy housekeepers and the desperate poor all mixed together in one vast heaving mass of humanity, trying to feed itself for another day. The church. St. Nicholas with its spire reaching toward heaven, the sailors' church that's watched over this waterfront for centuries, the bells that wake you every morning and count down the hours of your day, the graves in the churchyard where so many have been laid to rest, too many to count, too many to remember, the school for the blind, that quiet building where Edward Rushton taught children that their lives didn't have to be defined by what they'd lost, where people who couldn't see learned to make things with their hands and support themselves with dignity, a small act of compassion in a city that doesn't have much of it to spare, the library, the Lyceum with its 10,000 books and its dome full of knowledge that you'll probably never read. But it exists. That's something. Proof that Liverpool isn't just about money and ships and the grinding machinery of trade. Proof that some people at least believe in something more. The windmills on London Road, or what's left of them. Most are gone now, torn down to make way for factories and warehouses. But you remember walking past them as a child, watching the sails turn in the breeze, hearing the creak of the wooden gears, a simpler time, a slower time, before steam and iron changed everything, and the railway, the locomotive at Lime Street, the sound of it, the power of it, the way it made you feel like you were watching the future arrive in real time, that's still with you, still turning over in your mind when you lie awake at night. The world is changing. You can feel it in your bones, in the new jobs appearing at the railway stations, in the old windmills coming down one by one, in the way people talk about steam power and iron rails and speeds that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. Maybe there's room in that new world for people like you. Maybe there isn't. But the possibility exists. The door hasn't closed yet. And sometimes that's enough to keep you going. Sometimes hope is just another word for not giving up. But right now, in this moment, none of that matters. Right now, it's just you and the evening air and the fading light and the quiet sounds of a city settling down to sleep. Your breathing slows, in and out, in and out. The cold from the stone steps is seeping through your trousers, but you don't mind. You've sat on colder things, slept in colder places. This is almost comfortable by comparison. The stars are brighter now, more of them visible as the sky darkens. You wonder what they look like from the countryside, from the farms and villages where people live into their 30s, where the air doesn't taste like coal and the water doesn't taste like rust, where you can see the horizon instead of just walls and rooftops. Maybe someday you'll find out, or maybe not. Maybe Liverpool is your whole life. Maybe you'll never see anything beyond these streets and these docks and these courts full of people struggling to survive another day. Plenty of people live their whole lives that way. Plenty of people die without ever seeing what's over the next hill. But tonight, that's okay. Tonight you're alive, and your sister is alive, and the future is a door that hasn't opened yet. It could lead anywhere, or nowhere. You won't know until you get there. The sounds of the court are fading, the last voices going quiet, the last footsteps retreating into cellars and rooms, the last candles being blown out. Darkness settling over everything like a blanket. You should go inside, get some sleep. Tomorrow there might be work at the docks or work at the railway or no work at all. Tomorrow you might earn 4 shillings or earn nothing. Tomorrow anything could happen. But for just a few more minutes, you stay where you are, watching the stars, listening to the silence, feeling the cold seep into your bones. This is Liverpool. This is your life. This is 1800 and something, and you're a dock worker living in a cellar, and every day is a fight to survive. But you're still here, still breathing, still looking up at the same stars that people have looked at for thousands of years. That has to mean something, even if you don't know what. You think about the listener, somewhere far away, somewhere warm and safe, lying in a softer bed with clean sheets and a pillow that doesn't smell like mould, breathing air that doesn't burn, drinking water that doesn't taste like rust. What a world that must be. What a life. If you could talk to them, you'd tell them to appreciate it. Every breath of clean air, every glass of fresh water, every night of peaceful sleep in a room that's dry and warm and safe. Because it wasn't always like that. Because there was a time, not so long ago, when people lived in cellars and worked until their bodies broke and died at 17 and counted themselves lucky if they made it to 20. Because Liverpool is still out there in a way. The streets have been cleaned and the cellars have been filled in, and the railway has grown into something that spans the whole world. But the struggle hasn't ended. People are still fighting to survive, still hoping for something better, still looking up at the stars and wondering if tomorrow will be different from today. That's the thing about history. It's not just the past. It's the foundation that everything else is built on. The lives and deaths and struggles and hopes of everyone who came before. You're part of that now, part of the story. A young dock worker in 1800 and something Liverpool who survived the fever and kept his sister alive and saw the future arrive on iron wheels. Your story doesn't have an ending yet. Not a real one. Not a final one. But if this is where it stops, if this quiet moment on the cellar steps is the last thing anyone ever knows about you, at least it's peaceful. At least you're not afraid. You stand up slowly, stiff muscles protesting, cold joints cracking. The night is fully dark now, and the stars are as bright as they're going to get through the Liverpool smoke. Time to go inside. Time to sleep. The cellar is warm compared to the outside air. Bodies generate heat, and there are enough bodies down here to keep the chill at bay. Your sister is curled up on her straw mattress, breathing slow and steady. George is snoring in his corner. The Welsh family is quiet in theirs. You lie down on your own mattress. The straw crinkles beneath you. The smell is familiar now, almost comforting. This is home, for better or worse. Your eyes close. The sounds of the cellar seem far away now. George is snoring. The rustle of straw as someone shifts in their sleep. The drip of water somewhere in the corner that never quite stops. These are the sounds of home, the sounds of your life. You've heard them so many times that they've become invisible. Background noise, the soundtrack of survival. And just like that, after everything you've been through, after all the miles walked and all the bales carried and all the hunger and fear and hope and despair, your body does what bodies do. It lets go. The tension in your shoulders releases. The ache in your back fades. Your breathing deepens, slows. Liverpool is out there. The docks and the ships and the railway and the grand buildings full of wealthy merchants. The courts and the cellars and the 40 people sharing one privy. The churches and the libraries and the markets. The past and the present and the future all tangled together in one sprawling, chaotic, beautiful, terrible city. But none of that can touch you now. Now there's just the darkness, and the quiet, and the slow drift into sleep, like sinking into warm water, like falling through clouds, like coming home after a very long journey to a place you didn't know you were looking for. The muscles in your face relax. The ones you didn't even know were tense. Your jaw unclenches. Your forehead smooths. The worried lines that lived there during the day fade away into nothing. Your hands, rough and calloused from work, lie still on the straw beside you. They've carried so much weight, lifted so many bales, gripped so many ropes and hooks and handles, but now they rest. Now they're allowed to just be hands again. Your breathing matches the rhythm of your sister's breathing. Slow, steady, in and out, in and out. Two people who've survived together, resting together, dreaming whatever dreams the poor are allowed to dream. Your sister is breathing beside you, your city is breathing around you, and somewhere out in the night, a train whistle sounds, distant and lonely and full of promise. Tomorrow will come, it always does, but tonight you rest. Tonight you let go. Tonight you sleep. And if you're listening to this story right now, lying in your own bed, in your own room, in your own time, maybe you can feel it too. That same heaviness settling into your limbs, that same warmth spreading through your chest, that same gentle pull toward the darkness that waits on the other side of waking. Feel your pillow beneath your head. Feel how soft it is, how clean, how different from a sack of straw in a Liverpool cellar. Feel your blanket around you. Feel its weight, its warmth, the way it holds you safe in this moment, in this place, in this time that is so far removed from the world we've been visiting together. You don't have to carry cotton bales tomorrow. You don't have to stand at the dock gates hoping to be chosen. You don't have to worry about fever sweeping through your home or whether there'll be enough pennies for bread. That was their life, not yours. But their story lives in you now, in the telling, in the listening, in this quiet moment between waking and sleep where the past and the present blur together and everything feels soft around the edges. Let it come. Let your eyes stay closed. Let your breathing slow. You're safe. You're warm. You're home. And somewhere in the past, in a cellar beneath a Liverpool court, a young dock worker is sleeping too, dreaming of railways and futures and a sister who survived, dreaming of stars he can barely see and a world he'll never fully understand. His story will go on. Yours will too. But for now,